All right. And here we go. Welcome to episode number 36 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about one of gaming's most storied franchises. And warning, if you're coming to today's show and you haven't noticed the title, now is your chance to turn away if you have not finished the campaign and you don't want to be spoiled. We are everything in the Halo universe is going to be game for today's show. That includes everything we played in the game, any hidden secrets, any expanded lore, the whole gambit. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and meet today's Spartan team. First up, I got Mr. Spartan Mike, aka Mr. Kage Maru. What's up, man?
Hey, everyone.
Next up, we got Spartan Jesse, aka Mr. Don Cabeza.
It is nice to finally be able to talk about something I've known for almost a month.
Good job holding that in.
Thank you.
Next up, we got Spartan Aarsal, aka Mr. Soulblazerz, who just was able to complete it. Like, you basically made it just like we completed the first Warthog run, like with everything blown up behind you, and then you got on the podcast. So good job, Mr. Soulblazerz.
Yeah, for reference, I beat the game like a couple hours ago, so I'm pretty excited to talk about it. I haven't talked to anyone about it really yet, so kind of like, go through ideas. It's gonna be fun. Today's gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, as your host today, it's Spartan Abe, aka Mr. Onebadmutha. All right, before we jump into the Spoilercast, I think we might have just a single news item. Just throw it out there. So I'll let you kind of read that off, and we'll kind of get that out of the way, and we'll probably touch on that more in a future episode.
Yeah, because it's definitely going to be a really relevant part of Halo going forward. But that was HCS, Raleigh, right? The first major LAN. I wasn't there myself, but my brother went. He played for a team. They didn't do too hot, though he did okay in the FFA. But overall, it's tough. People are good. Overall, did you guys watch it at all? Any of the episodes over the weekend? Any of the matches?
Mm-hmm. I watched it so that I could get Twitch drops.
Yeah, that's what it actually. But in case you guys didn't, it was actually, there were some problems, technical problems. Yeah, I mean, every LAN has them. This one a little more than most. So I'm hoping 343 is learning. It's the first LAN they've done in a while. It's post-COVID world. You know what I mean? I'll give them some slack there. I think they had to switch their PCs to Xboxes for the main build because they were just not working too well with each other. But the viewership was ridiculous. I remember, I think Proven mentioned it earlier. I got to double check it. It was something like 5 times more than Halo 5's ever gotten and 10 times more than Halo 3 was ever gotten.
It was 260,000 concurrents on Twitch.
That's insane.
So wait, isn't it supposed to be dead by like next week?
It was supposed to be dead at launch without BR.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Right. No, and it's even the arena matches were great, 4v4, super intense. But you guys should definitely check this out. They had this fun big team battle series for a little bit. It's actually my shirt thingy. It's this Loser thing. I don't know, and it was crazy intense. Like tie game, overtime, capture the flag. Give that a shot. You guys should give that a watch for sure.
And it's this would be a whole nother episode. We can talk about some of the multiplayer. But I've told people beforehand that the Halo has its own lane when it comes to multiplayer, and I think people are just kind of figuring it out because Arena, especially on console, like Arena's existed still on PC to an extent, but on console it's been gone for the most part. It's been out of sight, out of mind for a long time. And I think a lot of people, for them, this is brand new. Like this is like a sport, and it's like, this is pretty cool. It's a totally different dynamic than what they've come into gaming if they just came in the last 10 years or so. So it'll be fun to see how that goes. And I think we'll definitely want to delve into a lot of that stuff in some upcoming episodes. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention it because it did just happen last week. Yeah, and it's just the beginning, right? Which is the more exciting part. Like this is literally their first major tournament, and who knows where it's going to go from here.
Yeah. There would be a lot of new content, a lot of new stuff.
They're going right over to San Jose or something for another.
Crap. I know it's in California, Anaheim. Yeah,
maybe
the next minor's in Anaheim. I think. I don't know.
More Twitch drops. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I do one more, but I didn't get the pose. Sadly, I wasn't able to watch the finals really. And I'm playing now, and I see me just doing like my own one, and then like 3 other people doing like their victory thing. Oh, come on. I guess a quick reminder for anyone watching who hasn't, the Christmas event is happening right now, the winter contingency. It's just play a match a day for 10 out of 14 days. You get the whole thing. The one that really matters is the second day, the candy cane skin. Definitely get that because it actually looks pretty good.
The peppermint skin.
The peppermint skin. Sorry.
Peppermint kitties have been all over the game.
It is so lovely.
Peppermint kit. Yeah. So.
I made my Spartan that last night because I want to make my Spartan the ugliest Spartan that it can be.
Well, so you bought the cat ears then, Mike?
No.
Wish I could buy you the cat ears.
Can we gift him the cat ears?
Can we force his character to have to wear them through some sort of devious means? Oh, and Knottian's not here because he's feeling under the weather, of course, on the first day of his vacation.
Oh God.
Yeah, and if you guys hear it, I'm just getting over being sick, so it's kind of building up as I'm talking.
I thought I was sick, but I got a negative COVID test today, so I'm good. I mean, I might be sick, but hey, at least it's not COVID. So
yeah,
Nick bought both the cat ears and the Iron Man armor core coating.
You did
go good together.
Down the drain.
Yeah,
if he spends another $3,000, he might catch up to his Fortnite addiction.
I don't want to hear him talking about wasting money or anything ever again. All right, guys. So we're gonna get into it. A lot to get into today, and honestly, like if we were to kind of delve into every detail that we could really talk about, we could probably have easily a 10-hour podcast today, but we're not going to do that because we got stuff to do. I still have to get to the store and get some stocking stuffers. So we're gonna cover a lot of the high level, the big things in today's show. We'll probably circle back for some details in some future ones, but I really want to let's just go ahead and start with the opening because that was something that couldn't be talked about. It caught me by surprise. I actually didn't see I'm fortunate that I missed whatever
I have it
was
playing.
out there.
Oh, what timing.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. So, this caught me off guard, and this was really damn cool. But I just want to first turn it over to you guys. And what was kind of your initial thoughts about this? Just overall, just general thoughts. We'll go ahead and start with you, Mike, with the broken chair.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was messing with my chair. Are we starting with the beginning?
Let's just start with the beginning. Like, what was your thoughts on the opening cutscene?
I liked it. They haven't really done anything with like this with a Master Chief Halo in the beginning. So I dug it. I don't know. It was kind of surprising, but not how badly he got his ass beat. But I like that just because that went along. If anyone's played Halo Wars 2, you know how much of a badass Atriox is. So this whole thing, this beginning, it wasn't overly long because I don't know why. For whenever all the previews and stuff were talking, they couldn't talk about the opening cutscene. I was worried that it was
the ones that did, not to name anyone, Kotaku, excuse me,
Game Informer, but it was awesome. It set the tone, I think, for the rest of the game really well.
Oh yeah. And then it's mentioned later on too in the game, right, where it's like Infinity lasted 4 minutes, and you're like, I can see that watching this opening cutscene.
And it also confirmed one of the things that I suspected. Whenever the pilot finds him and his grappling hook is already extended, I was thinking as soon as we saw that trailer, I was like, it looks like right at the last second he tried to grapple shot to something. And
that's cool.
And so it was really well done, really well choreographed, but it was short and sweet, and it set the tone really well. I enjoyed it.
Such an improvement over Locke versus Master Chief in Halo 5.
Yes.
So, even the opening of Halo 5, which was really cool, but didn't really match how the games ever play, where they're just walking up to an elite and they shoot him twice with a pistol, the elite dies type of stuff.
To be honest,
there's this disconnect.
Halo Infinite,
if you're playing, Yeah.
Sorry.
If you're playing Legendary and Atriox hits you with a hammer, you can expect to probably die.
Yeah.
So Heroic, you like it was just, it felt more immediate in a way, and less Michael Bay, which is a good thing.
I mean, I still love that opening cutscene, the music, the camera angles, blah blah blah. But in a weird way, I feel like Infinite, once you have all your stuff fully leveled up, plays more like that opening cutscene of Halo 5 minus the ground pound than Halo 5 did. In like a weird way, because you're literally punching people, dashing left, right.
Just the grapple shot punch itself is more badass aggression than you've ever really been able to.
Finishing off bosses with that felt amazing.
Talking about the Halo 5 beginning, that's one of the things that I did not really care for the Halo 5 beginning. Like, they were too badass. There were no stakes. The enemy didn't seem like
it was a cartoon almost.
Yeah, they weren't a threat. And I know it was supposed to be like a drive into the power fantasy aspect of it, but this was cool where Master Chief wasn't overpowering. You can tell the stakes. You can tell that the Banished were a threat.
It really matches and I think you guys, to kind of elaborate on what you've been saying, it really matches the pacing of the game, right? Like, it feels like there's not this jarring disconnect. I remember like it and I wasn't really planning on talking about Halo 5 at all today, but I do remember that was like really jarring, going from that Michael Bay, cartoony, G.I. Joe-ish kind of like, I'm a badass and can take on everybody like I'm freaking Master Chief Rambo out here, and then going from that to like, oh, now I'm back behind cover, and if I'm playing on anything that's any difficulty, I'm dead if I'm out in the open. This really, there was two things I thought this did. I thought, number one, with all the cutscenes, I think at first I wasn't a big fan of the fact that it didn't go with blur again, but then I do think that there was the one advantage they had with the cutscenes, though, versus some of the previous games, is that you felt like there wasn't a disconnect between the game that you were playing and the actual things you're watching when you weren't
playing. And plus, if you park warthogs in the open world, they can get in the way and fly all over the place and kill you during a cutscene. It's great.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Really?
There was a cutscene. We'll get into it later, but you go up a grav lift, but before you do that, you fight two hunters, and one of the hunters died right on the grav lift, and you activate it during a cutscene, and the hunter was still there in the cutscene, and not only was the hunter still in the cutscene, but the grav lift just sucked them up as soon as they got activated.
Yeah,
right.
So did
there
you
was
guys...
one thing sorry to cut you off. There's one thing I put in the review. I think a real quick one where I killed a grunt in midair as he was going on a grav lift or like a man cannon, and he landed and hit the wall and bounced into another man cannon and just went flying off again. And that type of dumb physics shit is the best.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, I mean, we'll can come back about about what we think about the overall cutscenes here in a bit, but I do think that to Mike, to your point, it gave it some stakes, right? There's some vulnerability. I think this is the first time that they've ever made Chief look like he's going to have this uphill battle, like like it's like Rocky and you lost, and now you got to go. It's like you're building up to something, and I think the fact that they finally made him vulnerable does humanize him a little bit, and I think it does change your kind of connection with the story, and it really set the tone. Like, hey, you got this ominous, this badass threat, and you're not just gonna walk in here and just demolish everything. And I think that for me that opening cutscene did more to kind of drag me in than all the other cutscenes in Halo 5 combined, where I kind of felt very apathetic to what was going on around me, in general. So yeah, that's kind of my general thoughts on that. Now, what did you guys think in general? I guess we'll hit this on right now. Do you guys like the fact that they did everything in game, or are you hoping that in the future they go back to like the blur, super pretty CGI stuff that they did previously?
Just in game. Personally, I want to say, just because you had moments where I was like, oh wow, hey, he's carrying my weapon, right? Like in the middle of the cutscene, he's holding on to the flippin' sentinel beam. And his entire body structure changes when he's holding on to this gun, right? Because the way it holds, I'm like, this is really cool, And I can easily see the way their tech is done, I could easily see something like your multiplayer Spartan being in there too.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be possible with something like Blur.
I mean, to be fair, like, or I guess every other Halo, even Halo 5, they've used an engine for every cutscene, but it's only with Halo 4 and Halo 5 that they used. Well, Halo 4 used the pre-rendered in the beginning, like the opening cutscene. And then the ending cutscene. Everything in between was in engine or real time. And then same thing with Halo 5. I think it was only the beginning. Was the only one that was pre-rendered. Everything else was real time. So like that's a Halo tradition, and I hope it stays, because exactly like what Aarsal said, like the weapon that you hold, that's what shows in the cutscenes. Like we mentioned before, if an enemy is dead, that shows up in the cutscenes. Like that one mission where you have to blow up the 3 cannons, I still had Marines alive at the end. And during that little emotional scene where the pilot is crying and you have this like heart to heart with them, these random Marines were just standing around like just awkwardly, and like I probably wouldn't have really cared for it the first time I played it, because that's supposed to be like an emotional scene and that kind of added some comedy to it. But later play sessions, like, because that happened in my second play session, I couldn't help but laugh, and like it added to it, no, totally. I'm always down for real-time cutscenes in any game, because there's less of a disconnect between that and the gameplay. It offers opportunities, like what Aarsal said and what we've discussed before. And it's, games look so good now that
it looks amazing. One look at the Chief's armor and you're like, oh, this could be a wallpaper. Like I want this to be a wallpaper,
And like pre-rendered is always going to look better, but once you get to a point of it being good enough, is it really necessary? Now, it does put more of a burden on the dev team. Whereas, if you do use pre-rendered, you could rely on an external studio like Blur. That could lighten the load and stuff like that. So there are benefits and stuff. But
it gives story freedom too, though, right? More so. It's malleable. You can change things up. If a cutscene direction you don't like how it looks, you can
there's going to be more flexibility whenever like you have to storyboard it and know have things ironed out further out whenever it's pre-rendered, because those take so much time to make that they're not as flexible. Totally. But I guess to answer your question, definitely real time. I want them to stick to real time.
Yeah, and I thought they did a really good job conveying the characters' emotions, and like that was probably one of the strongest aspects of the game. By the way, we do have Nick in the chat. He's admitting to buying the cat ears. He did skip the cutscene, so we're not bringing him on to the spoiler cast, because
we should.
He has no clue what's going on. and he beat the game on easy, so he didn't really even beat the game in my opinion.
I feel like one Iron Man punch or 2-man punch just take out every enemy.
I'm messing with you, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
We should do a lasso run, Nick.
You should go from that to the last, because he does have all the skulls, right? He did all the collectibles. So next is
legendary once co-op is out, I'm sure.
We'll have to talk about that. This is going to be such a good game for co-op. So let's go back to the characters though. We talked about the how they did a really good job, I think, developing these characters, especially relative to the last couple games, and I know a lot of you guys like a lot of people on our panel like Halo 4, but I felt a lot of times disconnected to everything going on. I didn't really feel a connection with a lot of it. Here it was different, and I was actually really surprised, because the first time I ever saw the weapon on the cutscene, I was like, oh man, she sounds kind of cheesy. I didn't get it until you start playing the game, right? Until you start getting, okay, she's like a baby AI, and you kind of watch that development. So I want to talk to you guys about that. First of all, let's start off with the weapon. What was kind of your thoughts with that development, and like kind of where were you at with just her overall story arc? Jesse, I'll start with you, since you've been waiting a month to talk about all this stuff.
It matched so much into what I thought the moment I finished reading Shadows of Reach, which was they found more Halsey clones, they made another AI out of it, and this AI they kept really tight control on. Didn't give her any information. She had no idea what was going on, what any of the enemies were. She just had one specific goal she was told to worry about: lock Cortana down. She's not even. I don't even know that she was the one that ended up deploying. The UNSC got to deploy her, because I do wonder what the time frame was, because I know that it was supposed to be they deploy her, she locks Cortana down, Chief goes down, retrieves her and Cortana, or she immediately deletes and Chief retrieves Cortana. But Atriox messed all that up while they were in the middle of doing it. So, and then eventually, the way everything goes at the end, time wise, it'll be interesting.
Go on. Go on.
I'm just wondering if they'll ever delve back into more of that in book form to give it some more flavor and backstory, right? And stuff.
With the book that's coming
the Rubicon Protocol is the 6 months after the 6 months between the Infinity being defeated and Chief being found. So it's like those logs. 6 months between. It's starring all the Spartans from the audio logs.
That's actually really cool. I just realized that. I'm gonna get this book
because you can see. I think it's Horvath. His yellow.
There's Griffith, Horvath, Sorel, Mako.
Horvath's armor coating is the yellowish camo, the desert camo, and that's on the person on the cover of the book, I believe.
You're right, actually. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Give these characters even more room to kind of flesh out.
Yeah, I can't wait for that book and doing it as a book podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Just real quick, one of the audio logs does show, or you do hear them. They deploy. It sounds like they deployed her remotely from Infinite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're half an hour left or so. I just wonder, is it in the middle of that they end up getting just completely friggin' destroyed?
Yeah, it sounded like that because they made it sound like they had no time. Yeah. So it seemed like it happened right in the beginning of the ambush or something, the attack.
They deployed her, and then Atriox shows up. They're like, what? 4 minutes later? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how you learn about how they were able to take them out so fast, because it wasn't just they're just big space magic things or anything. It was all military planning, and you end up seeing exactly how they planned all of it out over time, because they're really good at they're really good at scouting, they're really good at repurposing technology, and they're really smart, which is, you don't think of that with the big dumb monkey thing, but their whole thing is he's really smart.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't. We'll get into more why they end up doing it later. On the whole, I love the her introduction, her way of the weapon.
Oh yeah, the weapon. That's
the way she's the way she's brought. It's going to constantly be diatribes, but because it all connects so much, which is really nice. Being a smaller scale in the sense of you're not galaxy hopping. Mm-hmm. It just ends up being about this small collection of people, and it makes more sense being about a small collection of people because you're not going between planets with billions of people on them all the time.
Right.
That's one thing that always drives me nuts with stories. Is it's always about this very small group of people, like Spider-Man Miles Morales going through that, and it was about a very small group of people, despite the fact that it's in New York where there's 9 million people. Yep. That stuff drives me crazy, and I like that on this. It's a few thousand. Because at the beginning, it's literally they show you there's 1,900 dead out of around 7,000 people on the Infinity. It's horrifying.
Or it's like someone's hiding on this planet, and it's
and she has no idea why they're so mean and angry and aggressive and evil, because she has no clue. She's a blank slate, essentially, unbelievably smart, able to figure everything out in 2 seconds once she actually can see it. You can tell they really kept her under wraps and did not want her to, grow.
Any risk, right?
I think the addition of the weapon was narratively for the game and just for the lore, for everything going forward was really smart. I really didn't appreciate it until I was playing through it, and even going through it the second time, you start picking up things. But I want to hear. So what was your general thoughts about her arc, that character?
Are we talking about the entire arc, or just
no? Just we'll talk about the weapon for now. Kind of what was your thought about her addition to the story?
I feel like it showed that Halo is at its best when it's Chief and Cortana. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Working together as a team, taking care of this, taking care of that. Those little quick quirks, whatever it's called.
Quips.
The quips. There you go. Sorry, quips. The back and forth between the two, right? You have some great lines like potentially dangerous stuff like that, you know? Like it's just Halo, you know? And I'm not gonna say Halo 4 and 5 weren't. Halo, they were, but this feels like
Halo 4 was. I do think Halo 5
yeah.
was more of a side story. It should have been Halo Guardians and Halo. This was Halo 5, maybe. Like,
I could
just don't have Chief at all talk about him, but this is a side story about Osiris. I think that would have worked better.
They could have easily done that. Even like Chief wasn't really either way.
3 levels, yeah. You can just talk about it.
Yeah,
I could have figured it out.
But like with New Tana or with flipping the weapon. You're right. At first, I thought I was going to get a little annoyed at like the cheekiness or whatnot, but it's just that slow development. Her relationship with Echo 216, you know, it was done really well. Admittingly, I was a little annoyed at some of the repeating lines, but whatever. I mean, I'm sitting there doing random stuff instead of doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I kind of.
Do you want to go get that Spire now?
Yeah,
the third beacon.
That's probably the low point in that. Yeah, it's like it was like, and that's what she was there for to some extent. I think she did serve a few different purposes, and that was the smart thing about this character, is she was there for new people as well, right? Like helping them on board. It was almost, you know, hey, I'm here to help you know what's going on. And that, I think that is an important aspect of Halo as well, you know, and I think she did, because she was so naive and didn't know anything and had to like relearn stuff. It was a great opportunity for somebody who's maybe coming to the franchise for the first time and starting here, right? Like, oh, you know, Cortana was really important to you, like, or who was that? You know, when they're talking about when she's getting those, what are those dust images or, you know,
dust and echoes.
They kept saying it. I kept cracking up.
Yeah, so like when they're getting some of those throwback images, and then, you know, Chief is explaining to her what's going on.
You know, I never thought about it like that, in the sense where she works as like the lens of a new player. Now I'm looking at the scenes where they're explaining Cortana's actions from a different viewpoint, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like just saying, like, who was that? Like he's like, well, that was Keys, and he's like, did he, you know? You know, it's like, you know what, he's gone. You know, so it was just it was nice because it was an opportunity to do a lot of callbacks, play to a lot of nostalgia, and I don't know about you guys, but when you start hearing like Key's voice and all these, I was like, oh man, I'm getting like the feels.
Yeah,
it's taking me back.
That was great.
Same voice actor and everything.
Yeah, it was just doing such a good job of. I think like I said, her purpose seemed to fulfill multiple things, and I think whoever designed this character, and we're going to talk about this too, I think it was also an opportunity to kind of retcon Halo 5 a little bit, like kind of softly, some of the things they did there, but you know, and we'll talk about that with Cortana. But Mike, I want to get some of your thoughts on it. Anything like additional about New Tana that really kind of caught you?
It handled as well as I hoped it would be, or suspect, because like there were parts of the earlier trailers, like the I forget what it was, like the one trailer that came out like a month before, where there are things that she said that I was like, I like that. I like that she questioned, what did Cortana do wrong?
Right.
And at first, the naivety I was worried might have been overplayed, but it wasn't. Like she, you know, she absorb stuff real fast like an AI would, and her development didn't seem rushed. It seemed actually pretty natural, and that was another thing I was kind of worried that she would, at the flip of a switch, be this naive AI that didn't know anything to just being this confident, you know, all-knowing, powerful AI, and that did not happen. And they kept a natural story arc all the way throughout the entire game from beginning to end. And yeah, I really, really liked that. I liked the I liked kind of the humor and stuff that she brought as well, like subtle humor or opportunity for humor. Nothing seemed, because what was it? That was the one thing that she said that, or I think that was kind of cringy. I'm trying to think of what line it was where it made me wince a little, but that was just, I think it was just a spur of the moment comment that she made. And I wish I could remember what it was. I probably just forgot it because
was
of
it
that.
a sarcastic thing, or Are you being
Yeah, I think it was one of those.
I like that line. Might have been one of the high kill targets. He always says stuff whenever you take him out.
Or there's also like, oh, you can make a joke, but I can't.
Oh, I love that.
I like that because he was just like, yes. Just very
in the book, he
fact.
likes to joke.
Yeah.
Very deadpan. Like.
God, I want to talk about Chief too, but let's I mean, the weapon first.
Well, we can actually talk about Chief because he's an actual character.
We'll definitely get to Chief too.
But the way that it played the intertwined relationship between her and Cortana, I thought was played really well. Just the way that she reacted when she found out the truth, and also just the way that she reacted from when Chief tried to delete her.
Oh, I love that
whole sequence. Everything was handled really, really well, and I have to give
the words he used to activate it.
Yeah, that was
so
good.
Oh,
I got chills when I saw that.
Such lore nerds, man. If you go into some of the videos people are putting out, the amount of deep lore they go into is crazy.
So Nick is kind of jumping ahead, but I mean, she called herself Cortana, right? She's Cortana.
Well, she did
at the end of the thing.
She didn't explicitly say it.
Yeah, but
she
I mean,
said, "Is it okay?" And it was heavily implied.
If it's not Cortana, it's going to be
it's
what?
Cortana.
It's
because
Cortana,
otherwise, why else would she ask if it's okay?
It could have been just because she was naming herself in general. That could have been. So I feel like they left that door open. I wonder if they're even. I wonder if they're still not sure.
It was like a trial balloon. They threw it out
there. And see what people are, how they're reacting to what they think is going to happen. And I don't know. Like they may not know for sure yet.
So what do you guys think? Because this is her arc is kind of like a retcon of Cortana, right?
It is, yeah.
Especially at the end, if she really is calling herself Cortana, then she is the Cortana going forward. Like,
I wouldn't call it a retcon, more just a new beginning, right? This story kind of concluded Cortana finally. In fact, she even mentioned it. It was like, we keep saying goodbye, huh? Right? That's kind of like a cheeky.
I felt like the story was kind of spiritually a retcon. Like, obviously, like literally, it's not. It's a continuation, right? They didn't get rid of any of the stuff that happened.
I wouldn't go with retcon. I'd go with the soft reboot.
They
get to set themselves up without ignoring the past.
Right.
They just do a time jump and drop some of the things they didn't want.
Have you guys seen the new Spider-Man at all? Because it's kind of,
no.
Well, that does something similar in a sense, where it's new beginnings. I'm not going to get specifics at all, but that's what this kind of reminded me of.
It's similar in the sense that they always said it was a trilogy of movies. This was a trilogy of games, and I feel that they both ended their trilogy.
Yes.
And you have an idea of where things are going to go from here.
Yeah. And we're going to get into the Cortana next, because I think that is going to be an important sort of transition from that. But, the one thing I do want to add about the weapon that you guys didn't touch on yet, too, is they did, at the beginning, they made her a little bit more one note. She's like naive and everything. But like to your point, Mike, when they brought up because I'm replaying on Legendary and I just got past that part where he tried to delete her and she's like, "What are you doing?" That whole thing. It is kind of setting like casting a little bit of a shadow of doubt over it, and they didn't go too far with that. Like I was afraid they're gonna all of a sudden turn her like bad or do something like do this like quick turn, and they didn't do that. They kind of planted some seeds.
Just hurt. You can tell she's just her feelings are really hurt. She thought they were a team, and he immediately tried to kill her.
Yeah,
like good business, right?
It did seem. At first, I thought it did seem a little weird how in the beginning, when you find her, she pretty much has a death wish. She wants to be deleted, and then later on in the campaign, you try to do that, and then she stops it. She blocks it, which is kind of concerning. But I just figured that maybe she just grew attached.
Yeah, she had really grown too, I think. Like she had gotten used to life and was having fun and really wanted to know what happened. Yeah, before it was just I'm sitting around all these damn Silexes for 6 months. I have no idea where anyone is or what's happening. But now she's like, I've had these two relationships with Chief and the pilot and all these Marines we've saved. I've learned all this stuff. I want to learn more. So I took it as what the hell? We're in the middle. I'm being attacked, and your first thought is to kill me instead of try to save me. It's like fuck you.
Well, and Mike, to your point, at the beginning, she was like all obeying, right? Like, I'll do whatever you want. You want me to kill myself? All right, fine. Or delete myself. Yeah. And then she does evolve, and that does create an interesting dynamic, I think, going forward, right? And like they even did a good job setting that up with, don't you trust me? And he's like, well, I want to. And that was really, I think that's really interesting because they plan enough stuff out there now that you're kind of like along with, now you're our chief and you're like questioning, because I thought she was going to do, I thought when she disobeyed you, is she already kind of going off on her own path? Is this something that's wired into Cortana and it's just this is she going to eventually end up there? And they do plant those seeds that, hey, that's a possibility that she could still end up, that way, and maybe this will be a second chance for him. We don't know, but it does set the table for a lot of interesting directions going forward. So let's jump over to Cortana. And I think this is probably, in my opinion, I think from what I've heard, being in other conversations, probably the most controversial part of the story. And I know maybe you guys will disagree.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not to so.
Wait, no. What's the
let's go ahead and start with you then. So I want to kind of get your viewpoints because I want to hear something fresh on this.
Wait, what's the controversial part?
On Cortana, her.
Oh, okay.
Her entire arc in this game, how she's handled, how she is basically deleted off screen. We'll talk about that.
To me, it felt.
Sorry. I didn't say she didn't actually delete herself. I'm pretty sure that dead Guardian we see blew up the part of the ring that she and Atriox were on. I think that's what happened.
She blew up part of the ring.
Don't know how that
I thought she did some kind of self-destruct thing, but that makes a lot more sense too, because I actually thought that once she got blown up and she essentially got deleted or killed, the Guardians just went offline, and that's what I thought caused it to crash on the ring. But
it might be both, where like she had the Guardian, because they show the Guardians obviously do some major destruction.
Oof.
And it's freaking.
I didn't think of that.
So I figured, that whole part of the ring, I think she had blew herself up trying to take out Atriox with her.
Yeah.
So Pixelbait G just thanks for this $2 super chat. He said, never forget Cortana is a Halsey copy. I think that's actually a really important. That's a really important story element, especially when you're factoring everything, with the weapon with Cortana. So then you didn't have any issues with kind of how they handled that arc, or did you have any questions with that, or like how did you receive that whole thing?
So halfway through the game, I'm like, okay, so is Cortana dead? Is she not? Is Atriox dead? Is he not? Because they keep telling me they are, but I don't kind of buy it yet. Then you go through and you get the echoes and you get the digital clouds, blah blah blah, and you get that story told to you. I thought it was a pretty smart way of basically, and I don't like the word, but not retconning, but kind of moving past Halo 5's plot of reviving Cortana and sticking with that Halo 4 conclusion. You know what I mean? Which is just Cortana going, and they kind of did it again, but they didn't do it as strongly this time. It wasn't the focal point of the game. Cortana dying, leaving wasn't like the climax. It was more just, in fact, I think that cutscene takes place before the final fight, right? Where you see her talking with Atriox.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the conclusion of the game, right?
No.
So instead, it was more like, this is the conclusion of this arc again. I mean, again, Cortana literally mentions it. She's like, we keep saying goodbye. It's kind of like on the nose. I think 343 speaking to us themselves. I kind of liked it. Every character needs a good ending. I'm a firm believer of that. Every good character needs a good ending. And Cortana, even though she 100% killed like the entire planet and billions of innocents, I'm sure.
She killed Nick in all of Australia, pretty much.
Yeah.
She took down Nick's Nick, did you know? Nick doesn't know that. He skipped the cutscene. Nick, did you know she targeted?
Was it New Zealand? That was Australia.
No, it was Australia. I think it was Melbourne.
I think that was 343 just making it personal with Nick.
I meant more so
sick of all his leaks. But yeah, and they also blow up the Brood homeworld.
Yeah,
which
like
is
there's
like
a lot
the
of
holy shit.
A lot of people.
He's a supervillain moment.
100%, right? And so is she redeemed? I don't think so, because there's no real redeeming from an act like that. But at the same time, that's the only ending that could have been done, honestly. Like the sheer damage Cortana did in between Halo 5 and this, and as they showed in this, there's no coming back from that. You know?
Yeah.
So
and I think it was a good explanation too for like what was going on within her, where she wasn't cured. Yeah. She was still rampant. She just had that one dominant personality that had really taken over.
You had those whispers, right? Am I still mad? Stuff like that. It's
like there was still that desperate older part of her that put this whole breadcrumb trail for Chief with the hope that he was alive, because until she saw his body, she wasn't going to believe what Atriox had told her, that he had crushed his skull. It's like, nope. I'm going to do this in these few milliseconds I have to plan all this. Yeah. I'm going to drop all of this to try at the end to help Chief and keep the weapon from deleting herself. So she can help, because they need each other.
And that was, and I'm trying to I've been taking in that explanation and trying to understand that a little bit better. I'll say the first time I played through the game, when that happened, I did feel like that was probably my biggest problem with the story, and I understood why it was why they had to do it this way, or why they might have tried to do it this way. But I thought that it was almost like they tried to redeem her in a sense. But looking back on it, I don't know that it was as much a redemption arc, because I don't think it is. Like what Soul says, you can't really redeem after.
Yeah, she's always going to be looked at as a supervillain by the.
Yeah, she's more of a supervillain. But I think what they were trying to do is say, hey, the end of Halo 4 was the end of Cortana's arc. Like that was her, and that's what they were doing in this game. They were trying to just, in my mind, what they're trying to say is that's when she died. That main character, that moment that you ended that game and you had that moment with her, that's the end. And they kept doing throwbacks to that. Yeah. And this character here, whoever Cortana is here, is not the same Cortana, right? It's like this rampant AI. And I guess my problem when I was playing through it though is, when I saw that, it felt like they're trying to redeem her or make her good or make you like her again. I'm like, well, she's not redeemable. This didn't feel like earned. It felt like, and I said this on another show, it felt like a WWE heel turn. Hey, I accidentally got hit with the chair and now I'm bad. It's like, Mike, what do you think on this? It doesn't matter what you think. No.
You should have actually waited for him to speak.
Yeah, he was about to, but it felt too quick. But again, I think this was a situation where, and you might disagree with this, but I feel like it was almost like an acknowledgement that some of the things they did in Halo 5 were a mistake, and
last-minute Band-Aid jobs for what they had to work with.
Yeah, and it was like, let's just patch this up. Let's just go ahead and say Halo 4 is the end. Like, let's bring that moment back so that we can relive that ending again, and then all this other stuff is like separate, right? And I think that's what they tried to do. Did I really like how that landed? Not 100%, but I don't think that it was. I don't think the writers in this situation necessarily
had the most to work with, right? Because they couldn't really ignore Halo 5.
You can't, right?
Had major changes happen in that, right? Like, it still required, in terms of Cortana's transition from 4 and Infinite, it's like, wait, what the heck did I miss? Right? Yeah. Like, that part you need 5-4. But from what they had, I feel like they did a fairly decent job.
Yeah. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place because, one of the things that I thought of, has everyone here seen Godzilla?
Yes, I thought, the same. The mother,
so the mom, where she was, she turned out to be like the terrorist and like the one the bad person, and then at the end, suddenly she had a change of heart.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing.
and like that's kind of what it seemed like to me, where it wasn't. It's not like it didn't make sense. It didn't have the time to that transition didn't have as much time to breathe. But I think that I think like I said, I think the writers were between a rock and a hard place, because how much time do you want to give Cortana in the game, where you can't really give her too much time, and so I think for the situation or the current part of the trilogy where they were starting off, they did as good as a job as they could. I liked it. I think I liked it more until we had some conversations, Abe, where I didn't think about like
I have a problem. I pick apart things like that. It's like the motivations and everything has to connect.
I think difficult. Saw that a part of me because like the Godzilla thing, I thought before we even talked, like I thought that the first time I beat
Godzilla, Maze Runner, a bunch of other things where a villain, Star Wars, honestly, right?
Star Wars. When you make these really hard 180-degree turns, you have to build up to that, right?
Like,
but you got to remember she knew she was dead.
Yeah. Well, it's like Mike, you didn't become like the cynical man overnight, right? Like it took time.
Because I understand, I get it, Jesse, that Master Chief's death was probably the thing that was supposed to make her reconsider what she was doing. But at the same time, when you're a genocidal AI, it could have very well fit that she just goes full on in that direction.
Right.
So like,
it's also the mix of she's held in place by the weapon. She can't do anything. She's completely powerless now. All she could do is what she did, which is she still had the Guardian. So she can either just turn around and have every Guardian fire everywhere in a split second before she gets deleted by Atriox, or she can try and take him out and leave this little breadcrumb hoping that Chief is still alive and keeping the weapon from deleting herself, because she's like, yeah, we need each other. I realize now, like, he's dead. I think he might be dead. Atriox is saying he's dead, and now I'm about to die. And that wouldn't have happened if we had always worked together.
It's kind of like coming to realization that you were wrong at like literally the very last minute, and then trying to do something to change it. Again, the reason I mentioned someone like Darth Vader is because it's a similar story, right? This guy did some terrible things, literally killed younglings. You know what I mean? There's no coming back. I don't think Darth Vader redeemed himself at the end of Part 6. Are you kidding me?
Those kids had some pretty dumb haircuts, though.
They did. Definitely worth it.
My God.
That was the dessert that was
thinking it.
That barber should have been in that room. But it's in a similar vein where it's like these characters don't get redeemed, but it's just in like their final act, they try and do some good. Right? And Cortana was just in a position where she was able to do a lot in literally just a few milliseconds. That's also why I don't think she really went on about, oh, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, blah, 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 because it's pointless, right? There's no forgiving. There's no coming back.
Right.
And also, I think a lot of the actual help wasn't just her. She laid a breadcrumb trail and all this stuff, but I think we'll get into it more later. I think a lot of the actual help was from offensive bias.
Offensive bias, sorry, OB, yeah.
Well, and I do want to go back to what Pixelbit said about the Halsey thing, because you do have to remember that about Cortana. This is the other thing that's helped me kind of try to rationalize it, because she's not necessarily, in some ways she's kind of like Halo's Thanos at this point, right? Like she thinks for some reason that doing all these evil things is like the ends justify the means, right? Like I'm going to somehow make.
She's not choosing to do them; they are choosing to do it after she gives them the choice.
And think about Halsey, like on a micro level, right? Like she does these horrible things to kids.
A supervillain.
Right, like she like literally kills kids to build Spartans, right? Like that's what she's done, and it's like to her the ends justify the means, and so this is just more of like a macro level. Like what this Cortana evolved to was kind of that, in where she's like, you know what? Yeah, I know. But in the big picture, the world, the universe is going to be a better place by me doing these horrendous things, and so I think like it's justified in that way. And she did say something early in the game, and I can't remember the quote. I should have wrote it down. There was something that when I replayed it, like immediately when they were talking about Cortana, like, and they said she'll do anything. I can't remember what the exact word was. Halsey said
to protect humanity, even if it's to sacrifice you or herself or something along.
Something. And so that was a thing to remember too, because I think at the end of the day, for some reason in her split millisecond, with her now being basically about to be deleted, this was the best thing she could do for humanity in that split millisecond. So it wasn't a redeeming thing. she was still Thanos, but this was the calculated right decision. So that's how I rationalized it. The first time I did not like it though, but I do I can get there now.
I mean, you can always go in maybe she wasn't really in her mind. Maybe for a few seconds after seeing John, the real Cortana dug herself out. There's so many different ways you could look at it.
I think you made a really good point, Aarsal, when you said it's not a redemption story for her. Because at first, that's kind of what it seemed like the angle they were trying to take.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize or think about it. But yeah, she never really did apologize or ask for forgiveness. So yeah, no, that is a really good point.
If anything, she just apologized for not just being there for John, right? She was like, it's me and you. That's the way we always did it. And I didn't do that. Right.
He was echoing him in the sense that he's like, the whole time I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to protect her. And at the end, she's like, I was supposed to be there and I was supposed to protect him. You know, it's like full circle.
God,
also, to answer Nick's thing in chat about Locke being poochied, he is alive according to Mega Blocks.
And an audio log.
A series. Yeah, they have a series of toys. They have a series of toys that say "as seen in Halo Infinite," and they feature a bunch of people we didn't see. So they're obviously cut content or future DLC plans. And Locke in ODST gear was one of those people.
Interesting.
Like missing just a T-shirt and ODST gear because the Tavares or Hyperius, one of them, has his helmet. So they obviously kicked the shit out of him, stole his armor, but they did not kill him.
Right, and you could do that, right? Because we've seen in Halo Wars 2 Spartan's helmet fly off when Atriox uppercutted him, right? So that's a possibility.
So I saw the comment.
Sorry, go, Michael.
I saw the comment about him being killed or by a side comment or something. When was that done?
There was an audio log that mentioned his name, I'm pretty sure, but it wasn't dead. It was more like someone mentioned Blue Team was mentioned about not being on the ring.
Was it a grunt tower?
A grunt tower might have mentioned Locke, maybe.
Yeah, saying that they had killed him.
Oh, okay.
Because the grunt towers lied all the time.
Oh god,
they're full. They're propaganda. So you got to remember, and that's good. We're going to talk about that too with the brutes because I think that is, the stuff you hear there. Obviously,
they are very militaristic in a way the Covenant never was.
Think of them like
truth, bro. Like there are times where I'm like, man, this guy knows Chief's whole backstory. Yo, who told this person this?
So and propaganda is the right word. So, and then also, I think isn't Spartan Locke's helmet is attached to the brothers you fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're wearing
Hyperius.
I missed it. I forgot to zoom. I beat him again, and I forgot to.
Those guys pissed me off, so I'd kind of just like punch their body like 10-15 times after and moved on.
Did you play them on Legendary?
No, heroic. I'm not Legendary.
Yeah, they're fun on Legendary. They're one of the few I couldn't cheese. The Barris, the guy at the dig site with the hammer.
Yeah,
the first hammer power armor monkey you fight.
Yep. In the little tiny corridor.
There's some cheese ways. I discovered. I'll have to talk about later, but there's a way to cheese him on Legendary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can make.
You get up on a ledge and he doesn't come after you.
Yeah.
Also,
I did it by accident.
If you've unlocked that the best weapon in the game, damage-wise, the Sentinel Beam, the variant one.
Easily, holy fuck.
Yeah, you do that, and if you have something like a rocket launcher, you can kill him in about 8 seconds on Legendary with it.
Damn.
That's what I did.
It also helps because there's like a gate in the center that disconnects the two sections. You can just jump back and over. And he just...
Man,
I just chases you.
Got a grapple and just ran for my life. Turn around, get a couple of shots off.
I did that my first run, but my second run I had to get a bit more creative. So yeah, I just kept on jumping back and forth. And
really quick though, I wanted to mention, one thing, and this goes back to the super chat about Cortana being a Halsey clone. She blows up the Spartan training site, right? With like 72 Spartan force. We know how Cortana feels. Sorry, how Halsey feels about the Spartan force. She doesn't like them. They're not her twos. You know what I mean? They're just tools to where that's it. And that kind of reflects more with Cortana as well, where it's like, I don't give a crap about these fours. They're not my people. No hesitation.
The McDonald's brands of Spartans.
Is that what the intro cutscene was about? I imagine. With the tutorial.
And in the tutorial, it's about you're at a new secret place after Cortana had blown
because
up.
the place blew up, and it was like you're like the one of the few survivors of. That makes sense.
So, on that note, though, that is interesting. And keep going back to that Cortana thing now and kind of how, the weapon is sort of Cortana soft rebooted in a way. And that does, again, that brings this, we kind of see where if we can logically connect the path that Cortana took to get where she got, you kind of know that's a possibility now with the weapon, and it does complicate her a bit. But what did you guys think about the trade-off going from Cortana to Nutana, or basically?
There was this moment where Nutana was speaking, and the first half of her sentence was Cortana, and the second half wasn't. And I'm like, this is amazing. Just Jen Taylor, right? I think the voice actress did a phenomenal job. I'm like,
she did awesome.
In all three roles.
Yeah.
She should be up for some
called her in the
this.
review. I called her a 3-headed Hydra performance, and then John had me take it out because it was like, well, we don't know that. Oh no, I did say that, but I said through cutscenes versus being there all the time with you. Yeah. Sort of giving it away that Cortana's never actually in the game.
Those were little hints, right? That this is. By the way, that wasn't really a big plot twist, right? That the weapon was a Cortana clone. I mean, I thought that was kind of obvious from the
anyone. Even just looking at it, you wouldn't be shocked, and then if you read the book, you can really easily guess it. I don't think they were trying to hide it.
Yeah, that wasn't a big twist in it.
People who care.
I thought they did a really good job though, because I said this before too. It was almost like they make you like this new puppy along the way. It's like, hey, you get to adopt this one when we put the other one to sleep. So yeah, they did a good job.
They still did the line.
That's
though,
terrible.
Right? Which I liked. They still put that line in, because I'm like, man, are they going to put this line in where it's like they'll replace me with another Cortana model? It won't be me. You know that. Like, I'm like, yes,
they did put it in there.
Thank you. God, I want to talk about the chief.
I do like to take a step back of what we were just. I do like how the weapon was kind of freaked out when she realized that she and her she was a clone of Cortana, because she saw what she was capable of.
Yep.
And I do like how they kind of touched on that, because like what the super chat, they are all a clone or an AI off of a Cortana clone brain. So there are going to be certain similarities there.
Yep. Yeah. Funny enough, Cortana went off the deep end when she wasn't with the chief. That's all I'm saying. Right? After Halo 4, before Halo 5.
So yeah, and Jen and Just, you brought up a good. I mean, you mentioned it to me before too, before the review came out, that like Jen Taylor's performance here is probably one of the better voice acting performances I've seen.
In a game of incredibly good voice acting performances. It's the best one.
God, that last line by Escharum, the flipping the final speech was just, oh man, that was intense. Right before you fight him, I think. Oh, he just kind of like screams at the ending, and I'm sitting there getting like goosebumps.
So let's transition over to Chief, because I know. So you've been wanting to talk about him. So we've kind of talked about. Yeah, and I know we kind of covered it a little bit, but yeah. So what was your thoughts? Obviously, Chief is a little bit. It's obvious that they've been trying to develop him a little bit more, trying to humanize him a little bit, without going over the top because of obvious reasons for gameplay. But what was your thought? What was your just give your general thoughts on Chief and his development? And
I mean, I'll just say a quick line. Like the amount of depth they gave him without making it super obvious kind of blew my mind. Like, that scene when when the weapon realized that she's a Cortana clone, and she's like, I've reactivated the deletion protocols. You can do it. And it's all dark. At least I think that Chief considered it, right? At that point, he's like, and even going back a little bit, when he was doing the deletion protocol, you could see the hesitation just through the way they portrayed how the deletion was happening. And then of course the Samuel line, but it's just, that's what I love the most about Chief's development in this game, was how subtle yet powerful it was. I know a lot of people could probably play it and miss a lot of this stuff, or maybe I'm looking into it too much. Maybe it's one too many English classes. You know what I mean? We're seeing things that aren't there. But I just thought it was so well done, and more so than Halo 4, where it was. I don't think Halo 4 was long enough to really flesh out Chief's emotions, his interactions, his trust.
Yeah, Halo 4 had the same issue as 5, where they threw together what they had at the end.
Yeah.
To get it out on time.
This game finally had the time to properly, like, almost in a way, Chief was built up just as much as the other characters. It just wasn't obvious because it's not him speaking. It's more in actions and in little UI elements and stuff like that. I loved it, honestly.
Well, and the challenge with building up Chief, and I've said this before too, is because we know that when Bungie originally made Chief many years ago, it was so that the player becomes chief, right?
Yep.
So whatever you build up to him has to be something that will connect with most of the audience, or most of the audience can go, yeah, if I was in that position, that's how I would feel, right? And so Jesse, what was some more of your thoughts on that? I mean, what were some of the things that stuck out to you about his interactions and development?
Well, so much of it comes from every time they did the hand animation work where they talked about, like, at the opening scene on Warship Gabrakan, the very first mission, like that whole thing of him floating through space and very gently dealing with any Marines he comes across, and just flinging the shit out of any jackal or grunt. That was all hand animated by one guy, they said. Like, he just spent a ton of time giving, every time he was in a cutscene and you see him, like, there's purpose and thought behind exactly how he goes, along with a boatload of talent to make it look really natural. The scene when the pilot breaks down and admits he's not a soldier, he was just a civilian engineer who volunteered to try and help, and then ran when the Banished friggin' conquered him. And Chief just kneels down next to him and admits, I failed. Like, I'm scared. I failed. You don't have to feel terrible about this type of stuff. And just,
God, I love that.
Not a lot of words.
That was
even.
a great scene, actually.
It was that was actually the one when I talked to you and John was like, I just witnessed what might have been one of the best cutscenes I've ever seen during the preview period. I'm like, yep.
And
when I got to there, I was like, yeah, that voice acting.
2020, that line I think hit home to everyone who has a heart, playing the game like it's.
So not Nick, because he didn't see it.
Well, Nick, he's Australian. He doesn't have a heart, anyways.
Yeah,
his heart's upside down.
But yeah, Jesse, go on.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to so much of not having him talk too much, where, like, he doesn't really talk outside of cutscenes very often. It's just a few things here and there, so you don't feel like he's gabbing like he did at times in 4 and 5, where there was 4 had all the interplay with people in your comm on the top part of the screen, and he would interact sometimes with them, and 5 was obviously the team dynamic and everyone talking a ton. Instead, a lot of the talking in this is either Marines around you or the enemy at you, or the weapon and the pilot with you. And it's all the best they've ever had, especially the NPC dialogue.
We could have a whole episode of just that, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You could have an 8-hour-long episode just listening to the grunt towers. Like, it's that much time and work. It shows. We delayed this game, and we like, a lot of it's Joe Staten, so obviously that was added in after the fact, and it's all hilarious. I haven't heard a single bad one. Some of them have made me laugh for like 10 minutes straight. They're just, and they focused on that instead of having Chief have to carry stuff more. His actions, his mannerisms, and the few words he says. Yeah, like, and the pilot and the weapon call out how robotic in nature his actions are, where he just is straight line. I'm going to go and kill or blow up or do whatever I have to win here. And the pilot's terrified because he's not a soldier and he just wants to leave.
Yeah.
And the way he talks later, I also believe, is his family dead?
Yeah, his family's dead.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get into the pilot.
Is that him? I'm just wondering, was he assuming that because they were on the Infinity, or was that something he already knew?
They didn't say how he knows. There was a line, and I guess we'll dive into the pilot here.
Yeah, he said he's all alone. Yeah, because Chief's pretty much, it's just he's super humanized through very brilliantly crafted small actions. It's not big bombastic stuff. He's not a wisecracker. He'll make the joke here or there. He felt a lot like the book Chief without the inner monologue, because you get so much more in a book. Because
Nyland Chief, right?
Yep.
Basically, the Shadows of Reach. I wasn't the biggest fan of his Chief.
Shadows of Reach had way too much of that militaristic.
Yeah.
Friggin' bro back and forth shit. But yeah, the Chief in this game is the closest he's ever been to the books.
Yes.
In a way that works better for gaming, I think.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that is the balance, right? Because, in the past, in order to try to not to alienate whoever, the gamer is, you try to make him kind of a robot, but at the same time, people aren't robots, right? And I think so this was a nice little balance between that, making him show empathy making him show like vulnerability. I think this is the first one, and I mentioned that right off the bat. This is the first time he's actually even looked, felt vulnerable in any sort of way. Yeah. Mike, how about you? I know, like, one of the things we were worried about coming in was like he was going to have like maybe too many quips and things like that. Like, where did you like kind of land on where he was with the in the game?
I was happy with it. It was kind of classic Master Chief, but also more so towards the story, like the book Master Chief, like because Master Chief was, if I remember correctly, originally designed, or the inspiration was Clint Eastwood. And like a man of few words and a man of action. Yeah. And that was very much this. And I remember saying in one of our earlier podcasts that I hope he's not chatty catty during gameplay. Like, I don't mind him talking during cutscenes because that's a cutscene. I was generally put off in 4 and 5 when how much chatter there would be from him
while you're playing.
Yeah. While you're playing, because the whole becoming Master Chief thing was you have Cortana or Marines or whoever talking to you, and the player forms their thoughts and reactions, and then you play off of that instead of being those reactions being forced on you through whatever Master Chief says while you're playing as him. And there, and I thought that was handled really well. Like, there's some things that he says while you play as them, but it's very
few and far between, right?
Yeah.
Like the trailer kind of gave the wrong impression, where they kept showing lines of him saying stuff, but when you actually play the game, that doesn't happen that often.
Yeah. And I thought that was great. I thought during the cutscenes, his character was handled much better than even 4 and 5. Like, just like, I mean, a lot of what Jesse said is exactly what I was thinking. Like the way that he approached the Marines that were floating through space, or even the way that he reacted to Eshram's death. Like he just has that like great. He just has that respect for soldiers, right? And and he was more of a man of action. And
that's Cortana says that, right? In one of her lines.
And
the weapons, right?
Honestly, like the only thing that I wish they took out that stupid tank. I like it. Like that.
Yeah, that didn't fit.
That seemed out of character.
That did.
Everything else, because like even when he did joke, it was deadpan. It was whereas that wasn't very deadpan. That had a little too much emotional.
Might have been a trailer line.
But other than that singular line, I absolutely loved the way that Chief was handled in this game, because like 4 and 5, he seemed kind of siding like a depressed teenager type thing, like but it was too. They went too. That's another thing too. Like I think 4 and 5 were too serious, whereas this one had more levity, or
again, this one had the time, right? They were able to really flesh this out.
Yeah. It just seemed like a really good continuation from the Master Chief we all know and grew up with, and just like we've said, and I think it was the last podcast, like this is the Halo that 343 can show that they get Halo, and that not only with the gameplay and the 30 seconds of fun and the gameplay loop and everything, but also with the way that Chief is personified,
the characters, the story, it's Halo, at its best.
Yeah, no, I did think one of the interesting aspects of Chief, there was that conversation he was having with the weapon when she was trying to figure out him and the pilot. And I think this is where the pilot revealed that, his family's gone. And then she asked, Chief, and he's like, how about you? And he says, no, like I have nobody, like this is all I know, or something like that. And it was like that was kind of interesting. Like it kind of revealed his character as being somebody who's always been just duty. And then that, you see that come back again at the end when he looks at Eshram and he kind of sees himself in Eshram. I don't know if maybe I'm reading too much into that, but it kind of felt like he was like, hey, we're just doing our duties. This is all we've ever known. We don't even know why this is what we do.
And plus, imagine if the Banished had an AI that had blown up Earth.
Right.
How crazy would the Spartans have gone?
God, I can't believe they flipping like not humanized, but like made me sympathetic for the Banished. I did not expect that. I'll be honest.
They've always been really well written and had good motivation. So them just out of nowhere destroying the UNSC's biggest ship and all that would have been a bit out of character, depending on from what we knew from Halo Wars 2, where it's more like this fight for survival between two sides.
I gotta play this game.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't played it?
I haven't played it.
Oh my god!
Just watch the cutscenes if you haven't had
I know
a chance.
the story, but I want to play it.
Yeah, there's probably more context when you're playing it. But so let's transition now over to Escharum and the Banished, because they were less one note than I thought they were going to be. You know, I just thought they were the new replacement for the Covenant. There is a potential similarity.
We can quickly say thank you to Faisal for the super chat.
Yes.
Happy holidays, lads.
Happy holidays.
Catching up on the pod now.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Faisal. Good to see you, man. He forgot his friends' references. He's saving that for the main show.
I'll ban him. He knows it.
But yeah, so let's talk about the Banished. Let's talk about I guess what we know of Aatrox, Escharum. You know, like that. The Banished do seem to have a little bit more background motivation. You know, we know that they kind of delve into that a little bit. So let's go back around, and I guess I'll start with you this time, Mike, since I went last time. What was some of your thoughts? You know, Escharum, like any of this stuff, like kind of pick your poison on that stuff. What are general thoughts, and maybe some insights, things that really stuck out to you about them?
I thought it was handled really, really well. Like I was worried. That was the one part that I was kind of worried about when the rumor or leak or whatever about like the one shot camera angle that they were going for. Like I was wondering how much would that that type of that type of storytelling, how much of that would offer the Banished opportunity to develop throughout. But and they did break away from that a few times or a couple times, but it was fine, you know. And at first I thought that Escharum kind of came off like a comic book villain, but that the more the game went off, it was more grounded, you know. I did like how he was also vulnerable, you know, but like never in front of the enemy, but backstage or whatever.
Savior strength, right?
Yeah, he was sick or getting old or whatever was wrong with him.
Yeah.
And no,
I actually, any bananas.
No, I liked how. Granted, I was a fan of the Banished since Halo Wars 2. If you don't want to play it, at least watch the second cutscene in Halo Wars 2. They do a great
Explains
job.
a lot.
Yeah, explaining.
Have you guys all played Halo Wars 2?
I only played some of it. I watched all the cutscenes.
I know Jesse and Mike has played it. Abe, you played it too?
I played some of it, but I watched all the cutscenes before Infinite to get a bit back.
And I call myself an RTS fan.
Did anyone watch my Just Who Are the Banished video?
I did watch that.
Yeah. A lot of what you saw in that were those cutscenes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Primarily made up from those cutscenes.
And you know, I was also curious to see how they would adapt the Banished from an RTS setting to a first-person shooter, and they did a wonderful job. They did an absolutely wonderful job. I loved it. I loved how they brought back like the skirmishers, and
they are different skirmishers, though. They're not the same race they were. They are the regular Kigyars who decided to be. There's like some weird lore reason they have the long beaks instead of the short ones, because they had the different look in Reach. So if you're wondering why they just look like a jackal with that armor, it's because I guess they didn't want to make a second model.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. They were deflecting my flipping grapple hawk. That's what I know.
and I loved how they created the Spartan killers. Like I absolutely love that, and the way that they integrated that in the story was handled very, very well as well. Like I don't know, a part of me was like, man, I hope they aren't like the A team or whatever of the Banished, like kind of not cheesy, but like I just. The Banished were handled really, really well. I absolutely loved it. You also can see, and they do a great. And I think the thing that I loved about just the story in general is that none of it is like forced. It's handled very elegantly or naturally, because you get through either audio logs or comments from grunts or enemies that you hear, or just from the cutscenes that there's some inner fighting, like very light inner fighting. Or there's that one cutscene where who was it? Who was the one that
Jurga
got
and Domni with Tremonius?
Tremonius, right?
Yeah. Where Tremonius had his face smashed into the
At first, I'm like, "Dang, Force user." Then I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right."
Oh,
yeah. And the audio logs do reveal a little bit more. Give them a little bit more character as well. Like they're like again, they're not just this unified one note. Everybody's doing, like it's a little bit more of a complicated group of mercenaries, right?
And there's the one even where he found out that like they were trying to overtake an outpost and stuff, and then Escharum just comes in and kills everyone that was going against him.
Oh,
like,
that was intense. Yeah.
They are a brutal, strength-focused mercenary group that is now really unbelievably pissed at the UNSC because of Cortana and what she did to them.
Yeah, and we understand their motivation. So Jesse, you put together the video, who are the banished. So obviously you did a little bit of homework beforehand. You read the books. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you in the game that was like an evolution of what you knew coming in, or was it pretty much exactly what you thought they were going to be?
They've generally been on an upwards trajectory, but like the propaganda towers showed, they always talked way more than they had actually done to sell themselves more. And they're still doing it a bit in this game, but they really have, over the course of the 18 months since the end of 5, they really have become a lot bigger and better funded and more powerful to the point where they were able to brilliantly plan and destroy the friggin' Infinity.
Right, I feel
like there's a second ship called the Eternity.
Are you serious?
The Infinity, yes. The Eternity hasn't been in service yet though, because they took some of the parts from it while it was being built to fix the Infinity after it was damaged last time.
Interesting.
So I look forward to the Eternity. I think that might be where Palmer is. I don't know. There's so much story stuff and so many places to go.
And to build off your point. Yeah. I was just going to say, some people will be like, where'd this random group come from? How are they this powerful? But at the end of Halo 5, like, there's no real, other than Cortana, superpower, right? Everyone's kind of fractured. The Covenant's fractured. Arbiter's troops aren't really that powerful. We saw that in Halo 5. So it kind of makes sense that Banish, one of the few remaining militarily organized armadas, can actually damage the UNSC this much, take it out, basically.
And it was one that was built off of the back of the Covenant that knew where all their stuff was. That will actually use anyone. There are humans in the Banished. I don't know if they're still after Cortana, but like they're really smart and they're really dedicated to winning in a way the Covenant weren't, where the Covenant had their doctrine and their dogma, which really hamstrung them a lot.
And their leaders, right? Their politicians trying to just manipulate everybody.
Yeah, like I feel like the Covenant was more of like almost like a religious cult in a way. Like if you're trying to compare them,
totally was.
If you're trying to compare them, if you're trying to compare them to like our world, that's what they would be. They would be like a religious cult. Whereas the Banished is more
what Blackwater wants to be.
It's political. It's propaganda. It is, and like this is the interesting thing. Like kind of as you delve into it, like even if you go all the way back to Halo Wars 2. And it's a shame for anybody who didn't get a chance to like even see some of those cutscenes, because they do a good job setting up like who these guys are, not just in terms of power, but how they gain power. And a lot of it is through perception, right? It is through that perception of strength. And that was like a really interesting kind of dynamic. Like if you start listening to some of you start paying attention to like the little details in the game. Even about Escharum, like in front of everybody, he's this badass that can't be defeated. And then behind the scenes, he's recording these audio logs. This may be my last battle, but my name will I will defeat you even in death and all this other stuff. It's more about this perception of like giving people this confidence and belief. It's like inspiration kind of thing. And it's more like, it reminds me a lot of like, either motivational speakers or, Baghdad Bob or whatever, always trying to fake it to get all the army, the soldiers to, you got to fake it until you make it kind of thing, right? Like, and believe it until you actually, all that stuff. It's funny. Those propaganda towers were just that to me. They were like a cheesy motivational speaker kind of thing.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's what they do to motivate the soldiers, because part of their strength is getting people to believe. And if they lose that ability, whether it's Aatrox, and that's what Aatrox does well, is he gets people to really rally behind him and believe that he's this, and Eshram trained him and all this stuff. But it's if they lose that element, it's like then they lose the war in a way. But in some ways, what they did too is if you kind of listen to like even Master Chief and the soldiers, they bring that aspect to him with on the other side. And this is the other thing they do is they mirror the two sides pretty well in the game. Whereas when the soldiers see Master Chief, they're inspired. They want to go fight. They believe they can do it again. You remember when the pilot said, "Hey, when you were gone, all hope was lost," that kind of thing. And so both of them have this sort of air of it's not just the tactics in battle. It's not just the weapons they have or how strong they are. It's how they can kind of motivate and get other people to kind of believe in their causes. So that's an interesting dynamic. And I don't know if they're going to continue to build off of it, but I thought that was something that that's a new element for Halo, like in terms of like just the,
the foil.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. The Banished have like the propaganda towers, and then Chief just like has him going crazy, not like destroying camps and whatnot while people are watching. Like, damn, like after playing this game, I can see why people call you Demon, right? Because you're going in single-handedly taking out these giant outposts, literally alone. Maybe some Marines here and there, but otherwise, God, it felt amazing.
Except the Banished don't call you a demon, though, right? What do they call you?
They call you prey.
Yeah, and it goes back to just what I said. It's about that whole. We don't want to build him up to be this big thing. He's nothing, right? He's just. Remember, they kept saying he's just a human. Every time they kill you and they dance around you, he's just a human.
Easy fight. I'm like, easy fight, dude. Come on, I almost.
There is the one time when I jacked a
Elite's
shit or Banshee, and he said the demon has absconded with my vehicle.
The Elite still called you demon. It felt like a fair bit of them, and the Grunts sometimes did,
especially the ones that were dressed as Covenant still in their Covenant armor, and not in the Banished armor.
God, what are they called with the white things? Oh my God, they were called something.
Elite Ultra, Zealot Ultras,
Zealots, stuff like that. Yeah. Also, screw them, man.
Yeah, they're tough. They're hard. They're like little mini bosses on the battlefield sometimes.
Yep. I did like how the Banished understood that if you break someone down mentally, that's going to give you a huge advantage, and they totally played into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was about what Valor was, right? It was you kind of like bringing hope back to the UNSC throughout the ring. God, there's a lot of stuff in here, huh?
Yeah, and that's a theme. I feel like it's kind of been overlooked, but it was a big theme of the game on both sides. And you just brought in Valor, and I didn't even think of make that connection, but that just ties it into the gameplay as well. So yeah, overall, any other thoughts about Aatrox, Eshram?
Yep, really quick. One thing I wanted to say with the Banished, and it's my first time seeing them, was they were consistent. And by that, I mean like when you take out the God, I don't remember his name, but the last Spartan killer, the Elite,
Jurga and Domnai.
Jurga and Domnai, yeah, that was it. I expected Eshram to be like, "Oh, you took him out," but instead he was like, "Nice, okay." I mean, I either told him he's gonna die warrior's death or kill you, right? So that's that.
Yeah.
Well, to him that seemed like Chief proving himself.
Yes,
as a worthy opponent to Eshram.
Yeah, no. What I was saying was it's consistent because even earlier in the game, you're taking out the two brothers. You kill one, he's like, "Oh, he was a weakling anyway." I'm like, dude, come on. There was consistent theme throughout the game, and it was just it builds these guys up well. Also, we have to remember that the Covenant had like 20 books, 3 entire games to build themselves up. They were this galaxy-wide threat, but we knew they were a galaxy-wide threat, not out of the games. In the first game, they were just in Halo. That's it. You didn't know they were taking over the world or the universe. You know what I mean? That came through other media and whatnot. So let's see where the Banished goes from here in terms of more games, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm the only one, I think, who's read Divine Wind so far.
I think so. The second one? Yeah.
That is features the Banished heavily, and it's great.
Okay. Also, last thing, objectively, Red and Black is the best color scheme. That is true.
I do miss the purple ships.
Yeah,
I want to see one of those again. That would have been a nice little.
It does, like they do fit the overall themes of each army, right? Because like purple and it was very curvature or
like royal kind of.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. That kind of made sense for like a holy type of army. Whereas
they were like flying Pokemobiles.
Yeah. Whereas the Banish is very military.
Yeah,
industrial.
And
that's very
form
industrial.
They're all about
function
how
over
is this going to
form.
work for us.
Yeah.
And it was also kind of like pieced together forcefully sometimes, which is very much them. I do want to just throw in, I am extremely happy that Atriox is not dead.
Yes.
I was at first I was like, okay, so you're going to kill Cortana off screen, and then you get that cutscene where they talk about Atriox being dead. I'm like, oh, come on!
I never believed
the amount
that.
of people on Discord and the forums that were like pissed and like, did this really happen? Like, I can't
play the game, right?
Beat the game. It came out during the previews, like they let you show them talking about the late Vision or the late Atriox his vision in the preview coverage, which was really weird. And John actually chose to not do that.
Yeah.
Some people were like, I'm not going to put that in.
Makes sense. Okay.
But some people did put that in. So
I only watched his, so I didn't realize he was dead until. By the way, I know we already talked about this, but that was such a huge surprise to me when I saw him in the opening cutscene. Like, I did not expect that at all.
I didn't think I was going to see him in the game.
No marketing material, nothing at all. And then, boom, first person you see is Atriox. At that point, you know for a fact he's not going to die. Come on.
Yeah,
first person up.
They killed off
Julendama.
Yeah.
Well,
he at least got a cutscene.
He at least got a cutscene, but that was pretty pathetic too.
Oh, the Didact.
They were going to make that mistake.
They killed off the Didact off screen. They killed off Cortana off screen. It's not really
Didact, you can just kind of assume. I'm pretending that comic doesn't exist, by the way. You can just kind of assume that he just went down and got composed or something.
Yeah, he'll be back.
That's the way I look at it.
Well, that'd be a different show, but I think there's still possibilities still out there. All right, so real quickly, before we kind of touch on the end of it, let's also just talk about the pilot because he's one of the main characters.
Esparza, right?
Yeah. What is his name?
Fernando Esparza, I believe.
Yeah, Fernando.
I remember correctly.
Any thoughts either way? For you guys, I felt he was more there to serve a plot point, but than he was to.
In the beginning, I thought he needed a Xanax. Like I thought, I thought they leaned a little too hard on his anxieties.
Yeah.
But then during the course, you realize that he's not a soldier. I was like, okay, I get why he's freaking out. Exactly. And then after the pep talk with Master Chief, he does calm down. And at the end, he is kind of like just
he's like, let's go.
He's in it to win it and stuff. So he's a good character. Like I think the way that they played it off was that he brought the humanity to the story, whereas instead of forcing it upon Master Chief in a way that they kind of did in the past, Master Chief was Master Chief. He was the stoic man of action. You had Cortana or Nutana or the weapon that, like you said, was a window for new players. It gave context to explain things of what's going on, and I think the pilot did a good job bringing humanity into the story without forcing it on anyone else.
Like every band, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, look at what we're up against. That's he was just there to keep reminding you that the odds aren't in our favor.
Yeah,
pretty much. Jesse, any thoughts from you about him?
It was pretty much the same thing. It's like, I'm just wondering what is the motivation going to be on why he's so desperate to leave. Like, I get it in the sense that he was just floating and hiding for 6 months, somehow surviving on space magic rations, but why is he so much more over the top and desperately wanting to leave than any of the Marines you run into?
Right, he has nothing to live for at home.
and then it pretty much comes to, he's just not built for this. He's not in that mindset. He's not gone through military training. He's thought he was going to get to leave now that his ship had gotten power back and Chief was there, and then they took out a brute ship, so obviously they got a big sign painted on their backs. Like, he just wanted to get the hell out of here because that's just self-preservation. And once you learn that part, it really colored everything earlier for me, and I grew to like him quite a bit, especially like once he is all in and he realizes they can win and make a difference and it matters and it's okay that he failed and ran away and didn't do more because he can still just keep fighting because that's what Chief and the weapon and all the people on the ring are doing. It I felt it hit pretty hard.
Yeah, good points. So any additional things?
Really quick, he humanized, obviously, just in general, but he also humanized the chief, right? That one cutscene where he opens up to the chief because the chief's like, I failed too, right? At that point, he's like, this is a person too. Now I can speak to them, now I can talk to them. And yeah, I mean, he did a great job, and I'm really curious to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, for me, I think I probably not as low on him as some people were. I think some people found him kind of annoying because he like Mike said, he needed a Xanax at the beginning of the game. But at the same time, I think he was probably the most one note. It's interesting. Like even Chief felt more dynamic in some ways. He basically was just the coward, and I do wish they would have kept his family alive or something. Give him that real motivation of why he wanted to do something. But right now, he's scared, and now he's less scared.
I just realized he keeps that with him. He kept it probably in his pocket the whole time.
Yeah,
I just made that connection now. Huh.
So yeah, that part. I guess we'll see where he goes with it. I think he served more of a plot point to give them the other characters, build up the other characters off of him, and his arc kind of ends in the middle, right? Like I think once you.
Sorry. Turns out my chair, who I didn't make because someone wanted my old chair, everything's loose. Like all the screws are loose.
What's going on? Everybody's sick and everybody's got broken chairs today.
I'm going to look at that
later. I think that he was just more of a like he had an arc, which was he's terrified. He's about to give up on everything. He's down to no food. He's been just flying around for 6 months hiding.
Yeah.
Super excited, thinks he gets to leave. Starts getting dragged more and more into it. Eventually, you finally learn more about him, and it's just this change where he's like, even the most famous soldier in all of history is like here, looking to help me, talking about his own failures, and realizing, I can help.
Yeah,
I'm good at flying. I can be a part of this. We've already done so much, and like it felt like a full arc for a side character to me. Plus, I mean, I also thought his voice acting is really good because that guy who does him did the voice acting of Octane in Apex Legends, which is a very different character. I was like, oh man, that guy's got some range because Octane's just a maniac.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, just a quick line. I'd be annoyed too if someone told me to drop off a wasp every 2 minutes. Like, oh, okay, here you go. Okay. A scorpion? I don't know what you need this for, but okay.
I mean, if the wasp weren't made out of paper mache, you wouldn't have to drop them off all the time.
You get up 3 banshees all around. You're like, come on, I just want to get to that island.
I wonder how much of the vehicle balancing is for co-op. And they just didn't change it that much because they are very weak. But you can also get them.
They're made of paper. Often. It's like, especially on Legendary. It's like
on Legendary.
I use a vehicle to get me. The only time a vehicle, the only vehicle that's
tanky,
powerful in the campaign on Legendary is the Razorback when you load it up with Marines and power weapons. Then you can just demolish everything.
That, and for some reason the Ghost. The Ghost can still get you some stuff, but like the Scorpion tank, you have to use it as an actual tank is, where you don't go in.
Yeah,
it's all sniping.
Did you guys take it?
It's actually how tanks are used in real life.
That makes sense.
I did that on Legendary without knowing it was a thing.
That's crazy. Wait, really? No.
So in the road mission, the second to last,
tank mission.
If you take the tank all the way to the base, you get
the next mission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did that on Legendary without knowing.
That's
crazy. I used a Warthog because I had a couple Marines with me. So
all my Marines died in 2 seconds.
Probably would have been easier. I literally just spent 10 minutes sniping everything.
If you give your Marines power weapons, they will.
How do you give them weapons? I wasn't sure about that.
You just trade. Oh
my god, you just trade it to them. God damn it!
Give them freaking the either the
volatile skewer.
Yeah,
or the homing rocket launchers. Give them a combination.
Oh, that weapon was so powerful.
And the variant Sentinel beam.
And they don't run out of ammo. They just keep firing that stuff, and you will watch these ships come to drop them.
And they won't blow you up.
I just kept dropping weapons in front of them, and I'm like, pick it up, come on.
Yep, I would always have one sniper, because the snipers do legit shoot at a further distance.
Yeah.
I would always have one sniper, a volatile skewer, 2 of the sentinel beams and a tracking rocket
Oh
launcher. That combo right there seemed to work extremely well for any.
You could pretty much take it to
same damage. They do the same damage you do. They shoot more often than you can. They shoot longer than you can, and they can take way more damage than you can.
They have better armor.
They're all better than you.
Yeah, they do.
I feel like it was a glitch. I feel like they messed up something there because on Legendary, it's like, no, these Marines feel like they are what you would expect on easy or normal.
Load up a squad of Marines, plop it in the base, and just leave. Just let them kill everyone.
They will wreck everything. Like I had some parts where I was in Legendary where I was going for the high value targets, and I got some tough parts. I was like, screw this. I just went back to the base, picked up a bunch of Marines, drove up, and we just I just drove up and watched them just annihilate everything.
Yeah.
Don't discount the variant shock rifle either, because they'll all keep hitting things and shocking everything.
Oh yeah.
It's really fun.
The variant Ravager was terrible, I thought. Did you guys try the variant Ravager? It wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
I was like, come on.
It's if you can hit things with it, it can be pretty good. It's really
weird.
Hard to.
It's like delayed explosions or something.
They bounce, I think.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Real quick, and Jesse mentioned it about the pilot not having anything to live for and stuff. I thought it was pretty telling that the handgun that he gave Master Chief only had 1 bullet.
Yeah.
You know,
he was on the verge, right? Like,
yeah,
that makes sense now.
Because
in case.
Because you can, it's not obvious, but you know, as in the beginning, whenever it's rotating around the hologram of his daughter and wife, you can tell that the battery, not only the battery on the little machine or whatever is dying, but you can tell if you pay attention in the background, you can see like the power meters and stuff dropping. You can see how the battery cells change from green to red. So like he's basically
all the oxygens that been used up.
Yeah, like the oxygen tanks and stuff.
I wonder what he was waiting for.
So like
it makes more sense. That backstory does. Yeah, no, that backstory does make more sense now. So like he was a guy literally at the end of his rope.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh shit, I found Master Chief. I was able to power up my ship from his suit and wake him up. I get to not die now. And then he just gets dragged into the worst action scene.
Though to be fair, the Chief thought he was a soldier, which does make a lot more sense to me in terms of how the Chief treated him. You know what I mean?
Yep. All right, so we are.
The moment he knew he wasn't.
We're at we're almost at an hour and
God, I could talk about this for another 3
hours. So we didn't even cover the end. So let's talk about the end before we get to the community questions.
The end.
So the end is obviously
very hard to understand. I'm kidding. I
mean, well, so
can you even call it an end? To me, it feels more like a beginning, and that sounds super corny.
That's a good way to start.
The trilogy.
Yeah, so that's a good place to start. So you just finished it. It's fresh in your mind. Tell us what you thought about the end of the game.
I felt like in a way it was another reconfirmation, the ending of Chief and Cortana, right? Like that's about a big part of it. And then the last level was less of an ending and more of like Ashram's death felt like the ending of Halo Infinite to me, in a sense. And then the final level, Silent Auditorium, felt like almost like a prologue to the next chapter. It sounds kind of weird, I know, but it really felt more like, hey, this is someone who's we need to take out right now, but whatever's going to happen here is going to have rippling effects, right? Consequences. They used the word a phrase multiple times in the thing, but in terms of like major story beats, it wasn't like the original trilogy where you had like these massive world-shaking events happening. End of Halo 3, you win the Covenant War. Halo 1, you blow up Halo. Halo 2, the game ended unfinished, stuff like that. Well, no, even Halo 2, you find out the other 7 Halo rings, right? That was a big reveal. This felt more like this story that we started kind of concludes, and now we're setting up the stage for a bigger, grander, more expansive story with exploring the full mysteries of Zeta Halo, which apparently are very extensive. They kept mentioning that again and again and again. This is not like other Halo rings, right?
Right.
There's something hidden here.
There's a lot. There's so many things to touch on. And actually, did Jesse just leave? Where the heck did he just go? Now, so have you read all the books too? The in between.
I read most of them. Not the ones after Halo 5. not other than a couple.
So what was your thoughts about the Harbinger? Because I saved that character here for the end because I think the Harbinger makes sense to talk about with the end of the game.
I'm really curious, actually. I'm curious what Jesse thinks too, because the first thing I thought was when they spoke about the Endless and they spoke about the Forerunner Sins and all this stuff. I mean, precursors, right? That has to be it, right? But they never explicitly said it, and they did say not Flood, which kind of makes me wonder. Like, someone says the Endless, and my first thought is that's the Flood, right? I mean, come on, like the Endless.
Well, plus, they also had the one thing that the Flood had, which is they don't get killed by the Halo ring.
Yeah,
like that's why they were so. But the Endless are interesting because the whole thing with them is they sent a distress call from their home planet that the Forerunners answered, so they needed help with something, and instead of helping them, the Forerunners imprisoned them, the entire race. So like, there's so much there that they could be precursors. They could be another race that the precursors had chosen over the Forerunners at some point.
So the boss at the end, that was one of the Endless, right? Was the implication from that race?
Yeah,
I think so. But also, she doesn't look anything like their Silexes. So
right,
I do wonder if she's a different version. She's a different. Is there like the Xanilin? I think might have been the name that they were called in an audio log.
Yeah.
Yes.
Xanilix or something. Xanilin. Yeah. Xylin. Yeah. But she does say us, we, there's, I think it's pretty clear. Yeah. I think she is the, Endless, but like to touch on what you said, Aarsal, one of the reasons why I think they could be, because the precursors were never like a set form, right? Like they constantly evolved and changed and stuff like that. I think they might be. I thought they might be like an evolved precursor because the precursors were also called the timeless ones.
Yeah, that's
and so I'm wondering if they're part of that race that didn't dust themselves.
Maybe like descendants, maybe
something like that. Yeah.
All I know is that the Foreigners, man, they made so many problems, man. That's everyone keeps blaming the Foreigners again and again and again.
and of all the races that we know of Halo's backstory, the precursors are the ones that would have the most have a reason to be against the Forerunners, because the Forerunners turn their back and
they keep mentioning sins and stuff like that, and it has to be. I mean, there's no way it's just a completely new race with a completely new story, right? Not with 343.
I hope it isn't.
343 uses what they have, I feel, right? So I feel like with them, and maybe they didn't want to use the term precursor. Maybe they want to let new people also be there in ground floor, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Or that could be a big reveal for the next games, future games.
Hey, maybe we'll finally get Isodidact, right? Maybe. One can hope. But
there are already videos up on YouTube where logically you can see him coming back. Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It makes sense. They didn't kill him in a comic book.
Did I screw him up? No, by Isodidact, I meant the long.
Yeah, the ISO's a good one. Yeah.
I meant the long-running theory of the Chief. Okay. Is what I'm thinking of. I'm assuming that's not going to happen.
What's the long running theory about
the long running theory? Is that the Chief is the Isodidact, like it's his the term
really?
For the memory.
That's a long running dumb theory.
It might still be true. L plus R equals J.
Well, that would explain some of the force powers he gets to always be in the right universe at the right time. Like Luke accidentally stumbling on the Death Star. But hey, Jesse, I know there's been a lot of there's some confusion on the end. So why don't you, for the stuff that people should know coming out of the game, why don't you go ahead and just kind of clarify that, and then we'll kind of use that as a jumping off point.
Yeah, so like a lot of the time, a lot of the things I've seen people confused about a bit is like, why did Cortana change? Was she redeemed in the end? It's like, no, she was pinned down. She realized Chief might be dead. She didn't fully believe Atriox, or else I don't think she would have planned it the way she did in those few milliseconds she had.
Yeah.
But so Atriox tells her that I crushed Chief's skull and left him adrift in space. She had already noticed the weapon being there, but had already been held in place by her. So she knew at that point she's as good as dead if Atriox wants to kill her, because she was expecting John to show up and to have this big conversation, and it really threw her when Atriox is the one that walked through the door. And so from that point, it's not so much that she's redeemed or cured. It's just that she finally realizes that and remembers the memories she left for him were for a reason. And it's pretty much this whole thing of, you two need each other, But at the end, Cortana will sacrifice either herself or you to complete the mission. And she finally gets that. I wouldn't have to be doing this. He wouldn't potentially be dead. I wouldn't be about to die if we had just stuck together. And it's like at that moment, because you can hear her rampancy still going as you're walking along, and there's all the different voices arguing and crying and desperately pleading for help. It's like she wasn't cured. She had just sort of pushed everything else to the side, and this one shithead version of her had won, essentially, the argument and was keeping everything else at bay, but it wasn't holding.
And even for just a few milliseconds, it breaks, right? But that was enough for her to do what needed to be done.
It was like, it was she had a in her conversation. During that conversation with Atriox, she thanks him because he literally asked, like, in that question, what would you do if you knew you were going to die? And she's like, okay, I know I'm going to die. I'm going to control how I die, and I'm going to do everything I can to help John and humanity and try and undo a little tiny bit of what I did. Obviously, she can't undo the fact that she has probably killed billions of people, both in calling the Guardians, blowing up the station with all the Spartan 4s on it from the multiplayer intro, killing Australia in UNSC's command base, and specifically targeting Nick's old house. And blowing up the friggin' Jiralhane, the brute home planet.
Yeah, God,
just completely cracking it in half with friggin' Guardians. Like she went full crazy, and in that second, she's like, I can't fix this, but I can leave this little breadcrumb trail to try and help, and then I'm dead.
Also love that Atriox line, by the way, in that cutscene. It's like, what would you change if you could change? It's like, nothing. She's like, okay, all right then.
Oh man,
did you you beat it on heroic, right, Aarsal?
Yeah, so I don't know the legendary ending, but
okay,
we can talk about it though. It's okay. I mean, we explained it long enough. What was it?
It's the same ending, but with a bunch of voiceover, and the voiceover is from 97,000 years ago.
Whoa.
And it is a despondent pyre talking to the council of remaining forerunners, who are hinted at pretty heavily in like previous cutscenes. And if you look at that room, the end boss room, there's like those weird forerunner figures, tablets that have the friggin' text from a Halo 3 multiplayer map on them.
Wait, what the heck?
Their trips down lore are knuckin' futz. They are crazy.
Wait, what's the implication with the ending?
So the implication with the ending is friggin' offensive bias, who defeated mendicant bias. He is the one that was helping the
foreigners. Okay, that I kind of got when she's like, someone's helping me.
So, but yeah, that legendary cutscene is, you hear that and people, it says 97,000 years ago, so people thought Atriox traveled back 97,000 years. It wasn't that. It's just that the discussion was 97,000 years ago. And it's pretty much saying, we got to hide the shit we just did to the Endless. This can never get out. Whoo, it'll look real bad. And the Spawn Pyre's like, I'm going to need some help with that. And he's like, offensive bias is going to help you.
He said that?
He's there.
They said the word offensive bias?
Yeah.
It's 100% him. They said it. Yeah, that's why we keep saying, like, that is him. He's there. He's on this ring. He's helping Chief.
That's really exciting.
The same way Mendicant Bias helped you in Halo 3, which you only know if you read the terms.
Really exciting. Yeah. Oh, my God.
They're so into and so good with the lore that it's like, for a nerd who really likes the story of Halo, which I know some people just like, Halo even has a story. I'm like, yeah, it does. It's actually a really good one. It was, it's the best legendary ending, I think, just because like the implications are so big and it was just so cool.
You know, speaking of time travel, I was worried a little bit just when in the last cutscene, it's like, it's more like, when is it? And I'm like, don't tell me they went back in time, please not. Then she's like, 3 days forward. I'm like, okay. Whew.
I'm hoping that it was just a portal thing. I'm hoping that wasn't a time travel thing.
I think it's a time and space thing, right? You go through a portal through time and space, blah blah blah. So
because we've seen that in
probably like relative speed.
Yeah, like
we've seen that a nerdy thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess Aarsal opening the doors there, because there is the theories and stuff of time travel because of the Endless, and there's also the one cutscene, or it's the ending cutscene, the legendary cutscene about controlling time, or something. We don't have the time. We don't control time, or something like that.
Interesting.
Some people think it's implied that the Endless do, I'm hoping that the Endless are just called the Endless, not because they can control time, but because they are immortal, like they live forever. Like I really, really hope that the legendary ending doesn't really hint to there being actual time travel.
Yeah, I read it more like they know that they aren't immortal and that the Endless literally don't die, so they've got to figure out a way to contain them.
So I'm gonna make one suggestion, just because I feel like we're gonna go down another path that could be a whole nother show as we talk about what's coming next. I do think I think you put it very well. I think that the end with Eshram was the end of this story arc, and then the rest is kind of like a prologue.
Because you learned everything the moment you learned everything with Cortana and fought Eshram. That is like the end of their trilogy, essentially.
Yes. So I think
the Harbinger fight is the start of the next trilogy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of conversations. A lot of it's going to be speculation, right? But a lot of conversations you can have.
I've got all night. Let's go.
About the prologue stuff. So I think we'll save that for the next show.
Christmas.
Or we're going to save that for the next show. I think we're going to do what we think all that stuff, the prologue stuff means.
And it would be good to have Daniel here for that too. He's a big lore head. So
yeah. So we want to get into some of that stuff, and that's where you're going to really get into the backstory, the lore, and stuff like that. So let's jump into some of the questions, because I think
really quick. Desert, right? I mean, that was kind of what they hinted at, right?
Yeah,
it's the only biome we get to play in as far as
multiplayer. The desert, right? It's gonna be the next biome.
Probably.
Yeah, he wakes up, or he portals out in there. You've got Behemoth. You've got a lot of that in the concept art in ways you don't with other stuff. Like I don't think there was most of the concept art, unlike Halo 5 and even to a point Halo 4. Most of the concept art in Halo Infinite is in Halo Infinite.
Yeah.
They got their vision out in a way that they did not with the others, and there's plenty of really awesome looking desert stuff. So
okay.
Real quick on the whole offensive bias thing, if you remember last year, because they, along with that demo, the campaign demo, they also released the campaign trailer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cutscene in there where offensive bias is potentially offensive bias reflected in Master Chief's helmet, because you get the
Sam Fisher.
Yep. Yeah, you see the 3 red dots.
What do
you guys think about this? Really randomly, sorry. What's his name, man? The backup AI, the backup monitor.
Oh yeah, he's good.
Name. I thought he was funny that we kept fighting. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Resolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. Don't kill me again.
I made upgrades to my suit this time.
So real quick,
since we're going to be jumping, pretty fun too. Wasn't unfair.
So since we're going to be jumping into questions soon, there's a couple in the chat as well, and
in the far future we'll finally get the questions. We just have 14 more asides, if you don't mind.
You're right. We're already at 2 hours. Question from everyone's idol Goro. Can someone explain to me? Oh no, wait. Let's go back. This is Andrew McNeil asked first. What's your thoughts about the current canon? So I think we just kind of touched a little bit on that, but
you guys, the spiker, I love it.
The what? The spike? Oh, my God. Yeah. I didn't like it that much until the hunter showed up. Then it's like, this is my baby. I'm gonna pick it up whenever I can.
But I tease. I know he means the current story and where it's going.
Yeah. He's talking about story. I was like, what the heck are you talking about?
He's
being sarcastic again. It's interesting. As somebody who was not a lore head, even when this show started, and part of it is because of like 4 was convoluted to me, 5 was just like jump the shark. I still love the gameplay. I have to mention every show I played the Halo 5's multiplayer 2,000 hours plus. But at the end of the day, like I was not into the canon anymore. This one actually reinvigorated me. I think they did a good job.
They thread the needle on knowing in-game and getting extra from books in a way they didn't before.
I think they did a good job moving on from the things, at least for now, kind of resetting the table, and they are kind of harkening back to the overall the larger canon plot points. In a way, I think that are going to be more digestible than it was in 4. And for you, when you came into that, you're like, what? Yes. Who are these people? Yes. It was just throwing too much at you and you had to read all this other stuff. Now they're doing it in a way where it's like they're kind of going back there again, but they're doing it a little in a way I think it's easier to digest. And for myself, I actually find myself a lot more invested in it before. Yeah, but you guys already like the canon. I know that
they did it right. They did that balance where there's so many little stuff that you can dig deep and be like, whoa, is this that connected with this? While at the same time, they introduced these characters for new people. Again, I haven't played Halo Wars 2, but the Banished were a completely realized, competent enemy group. You know?
Yeah, okay. I thought.
Are we all laughing at the same thing here?
You guys I missed it. Keep going.
I don't know. No, I one of my complaints in the past was that they were too reliant on external fiction or the expanded fiction.
Yeah.
And here it's exactly how I wanted it to be, where it's an additive. And yeah, there's certain things like if you don't know who Medicant bias is, or I'm sorry, offensive bias, then maybe the legendary ending won't hit home as much as it would otherwise. But it's a teaser thing, like the legendary ending teasing for the next game. The next game is definitely gives them opportunity to explain who offensive bias is, even if someone hasn't read the books or know the backstory. So yeah, I think they did an excellent job making it. It's weird because it's the end of an arc, but it's also in its way kind of a self-contained story as well.
Yeah,
you don't have to play 4 and 5 to enjoy the story in Infinite.
I agree,
but you definitely get a lot more if you had. And then same thing with the expanded fiction, like all of those references, like this ring isn't like the others. That to me, that didn't just imply that they were imprisoning the Endless, but also hinted at how that was part of the original array. Like there was other reasons why it was different.
And actually, something I want to throw in there too, Mike, what you said about how this was self-contained. One thing I'd like to remind everybody of, when we played Halo CE for the first time, you were just dropped on this ship and then dropped on this planet. You had no idea what was going on. And that was part of the excitement to me. It was like they did a good enough job having a self-contained story, but also throwing out a lot of these little hooks that it's like, well, what is that? Why are we here? What, all those types of things. And I think they did a similar job here. So even if you are a new player, they give you enough context so that you can kind of go forward and at least understand part of the story because of the Nutana and everything. But additionally, if you don't have that backstory, you're almost like in a similar place that you would have been in CE, right? Where it's like, if I want to know what this is, I can go get that information. If I want to know more about the Zeta Halo or, what happened before and things like that. That stuff is out there now. And that was maybe the biggest difference, is that you really had to wait to get some of that information after playing CE. So from that perspective, and again, like I think I come in a little bit differently than almost everybody else in the panel who was, I think everybody else in this panel.
Hours, nor do we know all these different depths.
They were reading books and I was playing 2,000 hours in Halo 5 multiplayer. What the hell are you doing to me? I just noticed it. What an asshole. Is that what you guys are laughing?
Christmas that much?
That's
terrible. I didn't even notice.
For anyone listening, it turns out Jesse was putting a Christmas hat on OBM this entire time.
There you go.
Are you manually moving it?
Yeah.
My God. All right. So now everyone's idle girl did ask a good question. Can someone explain to me why Atriox is alive but Cortana isn't? I don't have a good answer, but I figure that's part of the mystery of it. We'll have to find out.
He's a giant cyber monkey.
Yeah. So my guess is, so Cortana was in the ring in a way, So like she's essentially destroying whatever terminal she was part of. Like her in a sense physical part, whatever was physically containing her, was destroyed. Whereas
that plinth she was on.
Yeah. So, but we don't know Atriox. Atriox, like Jesse just said, Atriox is cybernetically enhanced. He's not just a normal brute. Like, there's a reason why he's kicking Spartan ass like he does. But we don't know if there was something around Atriox. Like, there could be some potential things like we don't know how instant the explosion was. Like there's some wiggle room.
Yeah,
maybe that's something that.
Or he was just wearing whatever the hell Eshram was wearing at the end of his fight. That piece of crap took like 1,000,000 bullets, like 1,000,000 and like 10 skewers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we know he's the big boss, so he's probably got more of whatever Eshram.
Yeah, like
he's got
14
Warhammer inches of plot armor all around him.
That's pretty much what it is.
Why
we'll find out. We'll find out in the future.
Yeah. It's really not important why he survived. He just did. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
Maybe we'll find out in some of the expanded stuff. Jesse, do you have the questions from the forum?
Yarp.
All right, start reading those.
From Halo Gaming 08, aka Andrew Schmidt. As the story has come and gone, and how much I loved it, I have 2 questions. As Chief and Weapon truly united at the end, do you think Chief will fully trust the weapon as he's expressed interest in?
Yeah, I think him allowing Cortana or Nutana, whatever, to have the Cortana name, possibly, likely. 2 times. Yeah, thank you. Because I think with her asking him, is it okay? Was like, is it okay if I have that name? And him saying yes, that was him kind of burying the hatchet or whatever, like him proving that he trusts her. Because
I got a good name. 2 Tana, because you got a ton of dead ass.
Oh my God, that's awful. That was terrible.
That's like a 3-level pun.
That's
actually.
a dad joke.
Thank you.
I think if Master Chief he updated his Facebook profile and it says it's complicated.
Oh, and we did answer Andrew's second question, which is who do we think the Endless are? We've done that.
Yeah, so we talked about that, but I don't think he trusts her completely yet. No,
I don't think so.
Not yet. Really? I think he'll get there.
He would have removed the evolution.
There's going to be a tug. There's going to be a few
hours before.
Yeah. There's going to be like a tug and pull or whatever. Like it's going to be like a. I don't think it's meant to be.
This is a show for everyone.
Oh my God! Stop it, Jesse. I don't think it's going to be like a. I don't think it's all going to be one way or another. I think it's going to be a little bit complicated, and it's supposed to be. That's why they set it up where she asks him, "Do you trust me?" And he says, "I want to." It means he doesn't.
True. Yeah,
he doesn't.
I'm not sure if it's going to come up again as a plot point, but I think just in general, after what happened with Cortana and then the sheer damage she did, I don't think Chief ever fully gives that level of trust without a lot of work being done for it. That kind of thing. But I don't think anyone would, honestly.
The odd thing is, the more so it's going to take him time to form that trust, but AI don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, it would be kind of funny that by the time he finally trusts her, she's rampant.
Actually, I'm curious. Did they mention, is that still a thing? Did they fix rampancy with the domain and stuff? Does UNSC have
it's still
no, because I think that thing showed that Cortana hadn't been cured. She had just silenced them and one dominant personality had taken over, but the rest were still there.
All right, next question.
From Roranoa _090. Roranoa 090. I also have 2 story-related questions alongside a roadmap one. He's got 3 questions.
Ooh.
Greedy bastard.
Do you think the weapon should choose Cortana as her name? I hope not. It would be very cringe. Also, the only affinity is the snap of fingers. Their personalities are very distinct since the beginning of the game. True, calling her a Cortana clone was mainly to make it easier for people to get. They are Halsey brain clones. They're not clones of each other. There's been a bunch of stuff about that in the greater lore. We'll see how much they go into it. But they are clones of the same brain. They are not the same person. They don't have to go the same way. Cortana was like the golden child who just got everything you could ever want, was like the mid 20s to mid 30s, like super seductive. I know I'm good looking and I'm super genius. Halsey, who would play up the sexuality part of things, and the weapon seems much more late teens, early 20s,
more reserved,
super naive, kind of awkward, but really smart. So I think they'll be very different people. And I don't know that she will take that name, but they kind of hinted at it.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that she's going to take the name. I think they're probably focus grouping it right now.
They're probably gauging public reaction.
I hope she goes in a different direction. What were you saying, Mike? Sorry to cut you off.
Well, just that's the thing. Like, if a lot of people, because obviously, as time goes on, people are going to be more comfortable talking about the story out in the open, and I think they're going to gauge. That's going to be a topic. So if there's a lot of people saying, "I hope she doesn't pick Cortana," I wouldn't be surprised if they don't go with Cortana.
I feel like there's so now Mike has a little hat for reference.
It was much bigger last time.
That's what she said. Wow. Sorry, keep going.
That is levels to it. What I was gonna say, I feel like the Cortana is just such an iconic name with Halo. Can they really just drop it completely with the marketing, with like that aspect of it?
Well, they just call him Green Man and her Blue Woman, like they do internally.
Well, they have two Green Men now, so gotta differentiate.
And that's the thing that with them openly talking about during development that this is a soft reboot. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they went forward with Cortana, because Cortana is an iconic character in the franchise. And with this being a soft reboot, this is their opportunity to reintroduce Cortana for potentially a new generation or a new audience of people. It'll be interesting. I'm kind of impartial on it. Like, I wouldn't mind it if they did, but then I wouldn't mind it if they went with a different name.
You'll have to differentiate it somehow. Like, maybe they do. Maybe they kind of go split the difference and call her Cortana / something. I don't know, and then use that as a way to refer to her.
Tutana.
That would see. I think that
was something as a nickname.
I think that would only be necessary if there was any need to reference the original Cortana. But it seems like this story put a close to that character for good.
It's just I don't see any other name really. Like, they wouldn't make a big deal of the name if it was going to be any other name. You know what I mean? Like, after all this, is it okay for me? Yes, it is. They're building it up, and then it's like, okay, I'm called Deborah. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
kind of anticlimactic, but
because it's normal if I remember correctly, it's normal for AI to name themselves. Mm-hmm. So her asking, is it okay that I give myself a name, doesn't really make sense if that's what's traditionally done. It only makes sense.
She was also very held back in what she was allowed to know and do.
Yes.
Yeah. In a way that wasn't normal for AI.
Yeah. And keep that in mind too, because, and you made a good point about that too, is even though they're both cloned off of Halsey, even with people, you can have the same person, but based on their experiences, they become different people.
I mean, twins, right?
Yeah. Like somebody, like maybe Mike's alter ego is a much more positive person in another time zone.
Better driver, probably.
Another reality. I'm just kidding. I make fun of you. But yeah, so I think they can go in a lot of different directions with her. I do think it makes sense to kind of differentiate. But yes, you're right, though. It is a reboot-ish type of thing. And so maybe in that Cortana name, I mean, heck, it's in Microsoft Windows. Yeah. So it is an iconic name.
Well, it's funny that Cortana thing was going to have a completely different name, and then the guys who like originally had that as a code name were they put it out there, and then people were like, "Yeah, we love that. Don't change it." And so I was like, "God damn it!" They didn't want to name it
probably
Cortana.
Like, come on.
Yeah, it. So maybe they're just going to try to restore the positive association with the name again.
I don't think she would call her Cortana though. That feels a little off to me. You know what I mean? After everything he's been through.
Maybe he says something else. I don't know.
Yeah. Be like,
yeah. All right. But I guess what was the other part of the question, Jesse? I forget. Oh,
Mike.
The other two parts.
Oh wait, Mike, were you saying something?
Question. Well, I mean, just the original trilogy. Outside of Halo 5 and Halo 4, he didn't really mention her name much.
Oh, that's true. He can just
because like anytime he spoke, it was just assumed that he was speaking to her.
That's right. Good point,
Yeah. Okay. All right, Jesse. What was the next part?
Part 2. Do you think that Halo 4 and 5 cast will be killed off screen and or kept out in only books and audio logs, etc.? I am speaking of Lasky, Palmer, Roland, and Team Blue / Osiris. I know the community didn't much like most of their storylines, but I think killing them off screen is an even bigger mistake.
Yeah.
Give them a proper closure and or the right spot in the main story, Team Blue especially. Do you think the story DLCs will be yearly or even 2 to 3 years? I think it would be better having bigger story expansions than a 2 to 3 hour DLC each year.
Whole new episode here.
Winky face.
Yeah, like that's probably going to be a lot of in our next episode as we talk about the future of Halo. I would say overall, real quick, I think it would be a mistake to kill him off, right?
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, like restoring, making Locke, giving him the proper backstory, all these other things can, in hindsight, retroactively make Halo 5 stand out a little bit better than it does, right? Possibly, I don't know. But yeah, there's no reason to kill them off. The problem with them before wasn't that they were bad characters. They were just they were underdeveloped, right? So
yeah,
that's
I mean, also I feel like Lasky is 343 is like he's one of like their characters. They made him. He was pretty prevalent in the audio logs. They're not gonna kill him off. Are you kidding? No way. No. He's gonna come back in for sure.
And he's on the ring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We know Locke is there and alive, and a lot of others. I don't think they actually have killed any of them off, and I do think the DLC plans end up being, they can go wherever they want with it. So
yeah. I mean, we know Blue Team's on a side mission because there was a conversation between Lasky. Yes. I think it was Lasky and Halsey.
Yeah, that was one of the first Lasky logs. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if Blue Team will ever be in the game again. I feel like probably not. But the rest, I could definitely see. Locke, Lasky, Team Osiris, I could see them being in the game. Oh my god.
All right, Jesse, next question. Or what was the third question?
Here's what the DLC stuff we'll hit on more later.
DLC. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that'll be like the next show.
Yeah, we'll talk about
this. What time do you guys think? If you're going to give it just a time. The next time we see campaign content will be when?
Next show.
Okay, all right, fair enough. We got it.
All right. Ho, ho, ho. From Poderick Payne, a really handsome, awful human being. Happy holidays to ye turtle dubs and a couple days early. Happy birthday to Knottian. He's not here.
Oh.
A waste of saying happy birthday. My question is, just how utterly fantastic do you all expect XboxEra's Halo Infinite multiplayer review to be? I mean, it has to be given the extremely long amount of time it has been given. Okay, that was mean. Sorry, Soul. A more uplifting one. Spoilers below, of course. Spoilercast. In the campaign, after the weapon discovers she has Cortana's exact copy and asks Chief to delete her, she discovers she has Cortana's exact copy and asks Chief to delete her. Better emphasis on my syllables. Once Chief doesn't, as the music soars, you then get back to the action and there is a certain track that plays. Combine that with the emotional cutscene that just concluded, and that made me feel a certain way. Like, partly choked up and partly like, okay, yeah, let's kick this shit out of the rest of these Banish and go get our pilot. I feel 343 sequenced all that so perfectly to elicit a truly special mix of emotions. Did any of you guys experience that as well? I did multiple times throughout the game, including that part.
Was that your answer to the question?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
That one, the scene with the pilot where Chief kneels down next to him, the scene with Escharum at the end, listening to Cortana's like wails and cries at the end where she's just desperately wondering where Chief is because she didn't get to see him like she thought she was going to. Because like she's trapped, she knows I'm probably dead, but at least I get to see John one more time. And then it said Atriox walks through the door and says like, surprise, bitch. And so, or if you're a Dexter fan, surprise, motherfucker. So,
and she's cheeky. She still recorded that message, made it seem like, I'm like, whoa, is she here? No.
Yeah, there were multiple parts that the mixture of the writing, the pretty much everyone being great voice acting wise, from Steve Downs to Jen Taylor, just the entire cast, everyone. Escharum, who was the guy who does Reinhardt in Overwatch, and also Samuel Hayden in Doom.
Oh god,
Doom
amazing!
Eternal. Yeah, he's freaking range on that guy's crazy.
Yeah,
just or some DePaul. Yeah, they were all so goddamn good, and they all did a lot of their own capture work with like they were acting together when they did them, except for
that's cool.
Of course, this super tall guy who plays Chief every time in the motion capture. And it really came through in those scenes. And the music, of course, with Joe Horlitz, Curtis Schweitzer, and Gareth Coker putting out friggin' like 60 tracks between single player and multiplayer is just unbelievably good.
Yeah, I mean, today's show wasn't really about like getting into the music and stuff, but I thought that if I were to break out the different aspects of it, I think the music was an A in this game and does a really good job selling a lot of the moments in there. And for me personally, I think like that the cheap pilot thing, but I think more than anything was those voiceovers from Jen Taylor as you're kind of walking through the halls, kind of hearing her. Then those last scenes, despite everything that got up there in the first time I saw that, not necessarily having questions about how we made the switch, the way those scenes were executed were excellent, and I think some of the best. Because I feel like Halo in general, even for lore heads, I feel like a lot of it does come to the stuff that you have to get outside the games, right? I think like even Bungie's execution in game wasn't always like amazing. Like the cutscenes, the voice acting wasn't really. It was fun. It was like the games were fun. The story was fun in those, and it added mystery and stuff. But they weren't like. I never thought the execution, like even when Sergeant Johnson, like when he dies and stuff, I thought they could have made that more impactful and stuff. So there was opportunities, and I thought that's where 343 really started to put their stamp on this. I think they've been trying to do that, but this is the first time I felt, for me, and I'm only speaking for myself, I know I'm different than everybody else on this, but this is the first time for me that they were able to do that and make me actually interested in the characters based on the way they executed the scene. So I will agree with that.
I think that 343 has always had better dialogue recording on the whole, whereas Bungie had a few that just really hit and nailed it hard.
Yeah.
They had a lot more that didn't, in a way that 343's games haven't. But this is the first time where 343 got the whole story, felt like it was cohesive and thought out and planned in what they wanted in a way they didn't have before. Bungie always felt cobbled together, and we learned it always was pretty much outside of reach and ODST to a point. But this really does feel, and Joe Staten being there like he was with ODST really helps in the sense that it feels like it had a thought out beginning, middle, and end in a way that almost none of the other ones had, in a sense where you could always see the seams and sometimes sort of going through the motions and long periods with no talking or long periods with no music, which always gets me when I go back to those games. They're really quiet a lot. But when the music hits, it's phenomenal and some of my favorite ever. But you could always see there was always this lack of time. And this one really felt like 343 and this new Xbox finally showed what it could be like if they had that time.
Yep.
Right, I wanted to say, just remember that when it comes to the original trilogy, that was like more than a decade ago. Almost two.
Things have evolved.
Not just evolved. Is when we played it, we were younger, right? I was like a baby, and you guys were like still old men.
Yeah, you could have been our kids.
I was 19.
Yeah, sorry, I'm joking, but like it's hard to gauge modern day stuff with that lens because you're not the same person that you were back then. Some people will play the original trilogy right now and think, man, those lines are so corny. What the heck is this? But I played it and it still hit me, right? Because it was a huge part of me. Halo 3 ending is still like I tear up every time those credits start playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
but to answer the question, sorry, really quick, is I don't think in those moments were the most memorable for me, where it's like the emotional moments. They were emotional during the cutscene, but in terms of when I was actually playing, you guys will know what I'm talking about when you're playing, and then like the music kind of. So this game didn't have like the super bombastic, really awesome track like the Trials or Breaking Benjamin, in like Halo 2, but it did have those moments where it's like. It complemented the gameplay so well. Where I'm fighting these two bosses, like the two brothers. I gotta find that track. I'm pretty sure it's Seeing Phantoms. I gotta find it. But I'm like, okay, I had how do I say this? I had multiple gamer moments, and by that I mean like I'm playing like this, and then I started playing like this. You know what I mean? I put my hand in front of me. I'm like, okay, let's go. And it was the mix of the music and the gameplay and jumping around and popping the enemies, and it all just merged so well. And it happened again and again. That was a cool part for me.
That's a good synopsis. Jesse, do we have more questions, or is there? That
was it.
Okay, but you know what? So I think that you did that's a good transition. I think maybe to sign off, like everybody will go around.
Did Mike get this answer?
Oh, Mike, did you get the
Yes,
answer?
he didn't.
No,
Oh, Mike, do your thing. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Because
my problem is I'm doing the PP dance right now, and so
yeah, no, I'll make it quick. And honestly, like I'm a pretty emotionally dead bastard, so
I can vouch for that. By the way,
no, but like like Aarsal said, there are some parts like because three did have some moments. Like there's a terminal that's also an Easter egg where they talk about the coin, stuff like that. I always appreciated. And they also had that in this because you run through Dust and Echoes where the kids are playing, and that I assumed was the kids playing King of the Hill, in the playground and stuff. That was like those are the part I did enjoy the cutscene with the where the pilot explains he's not a soldier. It didn't emotionally hit me, but I did enjoy it. Like that was a really cool cutscene. But the ending with
you gotta give the people something.
But,
what just happened?
You turned your camera off, so I had to put something.
Yeah, we thought you stepped away.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep this up. It's better anyways.
Oh my God.
But I might have gone on a spree of finding little green screen things. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I think the last goodbye with Cortana was handled really well.
Yeah,
that was probably the closest thing to like the emotional, like that did hit me. And the music, and obviously the music is that's what ties everything together.
Yeah.
But yeah, that cutscene definitely I did appreciate the little Dust and Echo things like what we talked about keys earlier. And they were, those were like kind of nostalgic goosebump things, not like tearjerker things for me. The Cortana thing, and I actually thought the same thing with the ending of 4. Like, even though that's kind of cheesy and stuff, I thought the ending between Cortana and Master Chief was handled really well.
Yes,
and did have like an emotional weight behind it. Same thing with this final goodbye with Cortana. That for me was the highlight of at least the emotional highlight of the story for me.
And Esham's speech. Sorry, I know I mentioned it earlier, but holy crap, that last is just next level. I need to play this game again.
His voice actor was really good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So to sign off, I'm going to give everybody a chance to kind of go around 1 to 2 minutes. I don't think my bladder is going to hold more than that. So 1 to 2 minutes, everybody just kind of give just a general synopsis, like just some whatever last thought you want to give on the campaign, its story, anything in general. Jesse, I'll start with you.
I gave it a 10, and I got told by multiple people after they played it that I was not effusive enough in my praise.
Effusive?
Yes. Christ, I've used the word correctly. I know that much. I don't remember the exact dictionary definition of it. So I'm going to interrupt my part here and make this a little longer. I've drank 5 of these.
Oh my God!
I still don't have to go to the bathroom, unlike little teeny bladder man there.
You're saying
expressing feelings of gratitude, pleasure, or approval in an unrestrained and heartfelt manner. So I wasn't bombastic enough about just how much I love this game. And after replaying it now, a full time again on Legendary, going like halfway through again on Heroic from streaming, I love it even more. It's the most fun I've had in a first-person shooter in a year where Doom Eternal DLC came out and was like my favorite first-person shooter gameplay ever. This matched it and beat it gameplay-wise, but then also just has the story and music and everything that nothing matches for me. So for me personally, they've got some stuff to add to the game. They've got co-op to add. They've got multiplayer stuff to fix up and whatnot. But as a whole, this campaign was by far my favorite to play through solo, and I am dying to play through it in co-op.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it looks
maybe
like
we as a site will be able to actually do it together on stream over the course of the next 13 or 14 years.
That'd be fun.
That'd be really cool.
We'll do our lasso thing in co-op. So how about you, man? What's your final
I had this really cool line. Crap, what was I thinking of? Wait, could you go to Mike? I had this thought.
Mike, why don't you go? So I don't forget you this time.
For me, it's 3-4. It's easily 343's best Halo. I don't know because it's always a back and forth for me between CE and 3, which one I like the best there. Do I think it's better than either one of those for me? I don't know. It's up. It's within that ballpark. I'll say.
Yes.
Yeah, like gameplay wise, you could say yeah, probably, but how it hits you at the time is always such a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's really hard to compare.
There's certain things that like I thought there were missed opportunities. I thought it was a missed opportunity not to have a scarab. Like that's something like there was kind of outside of the last gauntlet run that were the tank part, you know, that it didn't seem like there was that much of an escalation in terms of opposition. I thought that should have increased because you're becoming more and more of a threat.
Yeah.
And you know, that wasn't really reflected in what Eshram was throwing at you.
Though the rooms were pretty tough, I thought. The training rooms.
Well, yeah. But
and we'll dive into a lot of that stuff.
Significantly higher armored and
I see what you mean.
I mean, in the open world, you know.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So, like, I thought there was, I don't want to say missed opportunities or things that I hope they add in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was an awesome game. It's in terms of open world games, and you know, I've spoken about open world fatigue before. I've dived right back in right after beating it, which I can't say about. The only other open world game that I did that with was Spider-Man. Other open world games that I absolutely loved, like Witcher 3, once I beat it, I was done with it. So like that, it's definitely one of my favorite Halos. I don't know. I have a hard time picking best of anything, like putting things in numerical order.
Yeah, of course, and you don't need to. I mean, it was a good game, great game. You had a good time, right?
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. It's a great game.
So how about you?
No one cares what Abe thinks, so it's good.
So this is going to be talked about more in a future podcast, but to quickly mention it right now is I was disappointed. A strong word, way too strong. But it would have been nice if there were more biomes, a little bit of variety. Sure. At the same time, in the previous Halo games, literally every single one, the different biomes, the different variety led to a fractured story. You know what I mean? You're jumping from here, jumping from there. It's not natural. With Infinite, I did like how it was really obvious you went from here to here to here. In fact, the entire game's in that map. You know what I mean? The progression feels great. In terms of how I liked it, look at it this way. When I knew the Spoilercast was today, I was still only like 8 hours in on like Monday or something, or Tuesday. And I told myself, okay, I don't really have much time. I'm still at work. It's Christmas week, whatever. I got to just finish this. I ended up completing everything. I didn't want to stop playing. You know what I mean? So I got every audio log. I got almost every skull. Stupid Grum birthday party. To quote Halo 1, it's just the beginning, you know, which is how I feel about the ending. Great game.
Yep. Great take.
All right.
Final take. So, you know, I guess the thing I want to just focus on is I think, you know, people do undersell the task that 343 had in front of them. Like, you know, we know like the perception has always been, hey, they didn't create this thing, so they don't get credit for a lot of what they've done. Hey, just don't mess this thing up. And I really felt like coming into this game, the team that was there was given an impossible task. They had a united, divided, still often toxic, you know, base that is very outspoken. They were asked to restore the identity that was from Bungie's classics, yet figure out a way to evolve this formula and make it more interesting to people that maybe have grown tired of that. And you know, as a Halo fan, you know, judging this game, it's easy for me to point out things, and you guys have mentioned it, things that we can do for next time. And we'll talk about that on a different show. But for today, you know, what I want to just say is I want to thank everybody at 343 for sticking with this, for dealing with us.
Lost your camera.
Yeah. Huh?
Okay. Thank you, Superman.
Oh, wait, what? Am I off camera again? Oh my God, my cam is not acting up. But you know, I do want to thank 343 for, you know, for sticking with this thing, sticking with this community. And I feel like it's never going to be perfect. There's never going to be a perfect way to make everybody 100% happy, but I feel like they threaded the needle as well as you could have. They've restored the identity. They have the best foundation. And I think Halo right now is in the best place it's been in since the end of Halo 3. So where I'm going to rank it with everything else, the times usually is always...
Ranking is banned.
Yeah, I mean that's something that time will tell. But I think that as far as this franchise is, it's the healthiest it's ever been since the end of Halo 3. They have an amazing foundation. I can't wait to see where they take it. In our next show, we'll talk all about some of those opportunities. Yeah, the future and where we think we can.
No, we are back to a 2-week schedule, right?
Yeah, we're back to 2 weeks. So
next week is New Year's.
It'll be January 6th. Next week is the 30th.
Yeah.
On the 6th, we'll get into some of those details. But yeah, just want to thank the team because I feel like everybody who's taken on this task is, I think it gets undersold. I feel like the task they were asked to do is harder than even a new franchise, things like that, because of the weight of the expectations and trying to please people who are pulling in different directions. And
I honestly think there may be no franchise in video game that has more weight on it for its importance to the platform it's on.
Yep. And the more asked, the more people saying you got to evolve it, do something totally different, and then somebody else going, "No, I want Halo CE exactly." Again,
3 for 3 finally, like, they fit their thing. Maybe not everyone likes it, but they fit it. They picked it and they committed to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's an awesome job. But I think that's a good way to go. Obviously, we have a lot. We said this before. There's going to be a lot to talk about. We'll conclude some of these things in the next show. I think next show, if you guys have questions, we're going to talk about the future of Halo, where we think there's opportunities.
I'll put up a post in our OT on the forums. It's forum.xboxera.com. We've got a Halo. You had me at Halo OT. That you can go in. I'll pop it up, and you guys can just drop a bunch of questions below, and that's what we go through.
Are we gonna have a Halo night next week in between the episode? Do you think? It's I know it's like almost New Year's Eve, so I don't know.
Yeah, no.
I can post something.
I'll be doing something else that day, but
I don't do anything ever. I actually have to miss the New Year's Day podcast because I got to go do something for the first time in forever.
Oh, damn! Nice.
Family.
Wait, that's a good thing. Okay.
So why don't you go ahead and sign us off?
Yeah. For those who are still here, thank you for watching. If you're new to the channel or new to the podcast, this is our 36th episode. We've talked a lot about Halo. There was an episode some of you guys might have missed because it wasn't live. It was episode 33, Breaking the Lore. It was focused purely on the lore. I actually haven't fully listened to it yet. I'm still in the process of, but it's pretty good. Daniel's on there too. If you enjoy our content, check out our YouTube channel. Where we could put in reviews, opinion pieces, whatnot. And for those who are following it, the book was funded. Yeah, which is really great news.
Thank you.
I think a couple days ago, 2-3 days ago, right? It wasn't even funded. It was like 140% or something.
Yeah, we ended up at like over 10,000 more than the goal.
Oof, damn.
US.
Yeah, so that's gonna probably take up a good chunk of our next couple months. Is working on the book, getting it out,
making it May. We're gonna be doing it a lot.
Making it as best as we possibly can for you guys. And otherwise, if you're looking for a place to talk Halo or to talk Xbox or gaming in general, check out our forums, check out our website. And if you really enjoy our content, check out our Patreon. Every little bit helps. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Yeah, Merry Christmas. You guys have a good one.